welcome to today's episode of the Group Therapy Podcast. Today we have returning guests and just all around cool person, Deryk Wehrley. Deryk has been on the road everywhere lately. Deryk, catch us up with what's been going on with you, sir.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've been a busy boy. I'm trying to remember when we did our last recording, which had to have been in the fall of last year, I want to say. Like
I believe
fall, maybe early this year. I mean, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yeah. It's been let's see. Scroll through. Okay, that's what I introduced. Okay, Angel, Jamie, you were all before them. Doctor, Daniel, Jesus, holy crap!
It was a minute. It's like a while back.
Because I believe I interviewed you before I went to. Wow, that's before I went to Virginia, and that was before that one. That was before I did the interview with the dude from White Trash. 9 months, we're still there. Dr. Malta. Well, maybe not. Actress, writer, filmmaker. Steven. Wow, dude, there we are. 11 months ago.
Boom. Almost a year.
Yes.
Holy shit, dude. Oh my God. It's hard to believe it's been that long because I remember, I mean, you wouldn't guess by our whole fiasco we just had there, but I mean, I remember doing the interview like it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So that's so crazy. It's almost been a year.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, we got so much to catch up on. Holy cow. Yeah. So since then, yeah, I've been all over the place, working on all kinds of stuff. Man, since then I've been, yeah, pretty much on the Deryk World Tour, essentially. Well, US tour, essentially. We're gonna go international soon, but yeah, wow. I just got back from Los Angeles maybe 3 days ago. I was shooting a movie out there for about 3 weeks. And literally this Wednesday, I'm flying to Slovenia. And I'm going to be out there for a week. And that's for fun, you know, because that's what people do. They go to Slovenia for fun. I'm actually, it's Iron Maiden is going on tour, and it's the first night of a brand new tour. So it's like, I wanted to be there to experience the first night of an all new set list and stage show and stuff. So, you know, I got to be a nerd a little bit here and there. So yeah, doing that, but man, holy cow, I've done a handful of movie projects from then to now, and all kinds of events and things like that. It's hard to believe kind of looking at where we were then compared to now. Cause yeah, I didn't realize it was that long ago. I would have said like, oh yeah, it was like back in November, but no.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And all of a sudden I'm like, I looked at it, I kept scrolling, I'm like, holy crap. But the thing is, we've talked since then. And I don't know if we've kind of gotten to the fact that we've talked and conversed, that we've kind of blurred those two things together.
I think that it is, because I know I've stopped by your shop a couple times and we've chatted here and there. Yep. And you know, we message each other on Facebook here and there and chat, and we've been to a few shows, mutual concerts and things like that. So I feel like that does kind of all start to blend together. That's like, wow, I haven't been on the show in forever. So no, it's exciting to be back on for sure.
Oh yeah. And I got to ask, how did the Kings of Thrash tour go?
It went awesome. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you know, getting linked up with you know, Chris Poland, Jeff Young, and David Ellefson to do Days of the Dead up in Chicago was an incredible experience and an amazing opportunity. And, you know, that went so well that they hired me to then do another event with them, which was Days of the Dead in Atlanta. And pretty much they've decided that every Days of the Dead show, I'm going to be their guy for all that stuff. So I don't think they're going to do another one until Houston in like, when is that? Like September or October or something like that.
Yeah, something.
But yeah, they did a US tour, mostly Midwest and East Coast, January and February. and I did 4 or 5 shows with them through that. And I was basically just like tour photographer. We took some promos. I was doing live photography for them each night that I was with them and things like that. But the tour was great. They had a really good turnout at the shows. And we had tons and tons of fun. I met a lot of cool fans and people that I wouldn't have got to meet otherwise. And yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. Ever since I was a kid, I've said a million times, I always wanted to be a rock star. And that's like the closest I've ever been. There was, nights that I was like up on the stage taking photos, and it's like, my God, they're like literally playing "For Me to the Wall," like this is nuts. It was so surreal being a part of something like that, and the fact that they're playing, all of "Killing Is My Business" and all of "So Far So Good So What," cuts from some of the other albums. I mean, they're playing stuff from Peace Sells, stuff from Rust in Peace. A lot of the shows I did, they did like this medley where they did Holy Wars. No, it was started with the drum roll from Rust in Peace Polaris into Holy Wars into Hangar 18, and then they'd close it out with some bits from Tornado of Souls, and it was just like, oh my God, like 4 hard hitters right there, plus doing covers of like Wasted by Def Leppard and Swords and Tequila by Riot. And it was such a celebration of not only like Megadeth's music, but also some of the bands that kind of got those guys up and rolling. And each night your set list was anywhere from, what was it, like 25 to 30 songs every night, which is just, you're getting your money's worth with that. I mean, most bands only play 18, 19 songs capped, and they're like, nope, we're gonna play all this stuff. It was amazing.
The good thing about it is those first 3 Megadeth albums, their songs are kind of short, so so it's not like you're getting that 6 or 7 minute song, but you're still getting a good 3-minute solid song.
Oh, totally. And it was just so cool because and they've even openly said it in so many interviews. I've been seeing Megadeth since 2009. I've seen them 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
And from those first 3 albums, the only songs I've ever seen them play were obviously Peace Sells, Rattlehead. I've seen them play Rattlehead once. I saw them play Set the World Afire once. Obviously they play Peace Sells at every show.
Yeah.
Wake Up Dead I've seen once or twice. And then like In My Darkest Hour once but that's really it. Like they don't play much from those albums.
No.
So there were so many songs that they played, and Ellefson actually told me when we did Days of the Dead in Chicago, they did a short set there and they played Mary Jane. And he said tonight playing Mary Jane like this, he's like, we haven't played that, or I haven't played it with Megadeth since 1990. He's like, Megadeth hasn't played that since, the Rust in Peace tour. He's like, doing this Kings of Thrash thing, it gives us the opportunity to bring some of those songs back that haven't been played since then, or even songs older than that, songs like Chosen Ones, which he was like, I don't think that's been played since like the Wake Up Dead tour when we were supporting Peace Sells. He's like, bringing that back. Those are songs that people don't really, think about. And then when they hear it, they're like, oh my God, I remember this one, So it was really cool getting to see songs that I otherwise would never have gotten to see and will probably never get to see Megadeth do. But even further than that, in such intimate venues, like they're playing Masquerade, they're playing King of Clubs in Columbus and, the Vogue in Indianapolis, playing the types of venues Megadeth would have been playing at that point in time. So just seeing those thrash classics like that, such a spectacular experience. And plus seeing the fans get into it, the Cincinnati show was off the chain. There was not a person in that place not moving. Like people were jumping, moshing, going totally ballistic. And that was such a cool feeling getting to see that and be a part of it as well. It was so cool.
Yeah. You're talking about seeing Megadeth like 2009. Sometimes I forget how young you are. I saw them 91.
Yeah, and it's funny, Ellefson brings up, because every time I mention him from Dayton, I mean they know that by now because I've been around them working with them so much, but Jeff Young is from the Oakwood area, Kettering, Oakwood, kind of that area. And we talk about it all the time, but Ellefson always brings up playing Hair Arena in the early 90s when they'd come through with like Pantera and White Zombie and like all these other bands. He said the early 90s, he said Dayton, Ohio. He's like, that was one of our favorite stops because the metalheads in Ohio are just like, he's like, you guys go hard. You're built different. And I'm like, yeah, man, we appreciate that stuff. And no one ever through anymore. So it's like, we really appreciate it when it happens.
Oh yeah. I remember standing outside in like August, 3,000 degrees on the pavement outside of freaking Hair Arena, sweating our asses off, going into the show, then getting on the floor. And that was back in the old days where you got your floor tickets, you got in there early, and they made everybody set. And then they would like all of a sudden they're like, okay, and they put their arms up and everybody lunged forward to the thing. And me and my friends were always front right there, boom. And I've seen Mega 5 or 6 times at Hair Arena over the years. I've seen them from the not the first leg of the Rust in Peace tour, probably the second leg because it was before Countdown to Extinction dropped. So probably that last.
That tour went from like 1990 into 1991, so it did last right up to the release of Countdown. I mean, they had to be recording in between legs of that tour because and a lot of bands in that time, late 80s, early 90s, they were just pumping them out and touring and like nobody's business. It was insane.
Well, that's like you were talking about because I was at that Pantera, Megadeth, White Zombie show, and going back and because I have like a VHS tape of that. Somebody recorded it, and I ended up getting it bootleg at a con years ago. And I'm like sitting there because and I could see myself like 19-year-old Paul just right there, front row, middle. I'm like, that kid's long gone. But Pantera, man, they were all through here too. And I saw them like 8 times in like 3 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, and they put out 2 albums in that period of time. I watched them at the beginning because as I love telling people, my senior prom was Pantera Skid Row, and my wife's prom was Slayer. Decisions were made.
Hey, sometimes you just got to prioritize stuff, you know. And
that's right.
Concerts are above all, you know. It's crazy, but I mean, we're talking about a time when like some of the best metal was coming out. You know, everyone talked about how metal kind of like died in the 90s, but it really was also kind of thriving. Like classic metal, like your bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were kind of slowing down and petering out, and like band members were changing and leaving. But bands like, you know, Megadeth and Pantera, who are started kind of small in the mid 80s, were really reaching their stride in the 90s and blowing up. And so it's like everybody was touring like crazy. And, you know, Pantera was like the biggest, I mean, right up there with like Metallica, one of the biggest bands in the world at that time. So it's like, you know, they're touring, but it's also a time where bands would do multiple tracks through the US a year. You know, and so you get to see them in Ohio. It was either Toledo, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, or multiple of those a year. You know, Indianapolis even, because it's not too terribly far away. And I have a buddy, his name's Scott, and he does a lot of cons with me and stuff. And he was telling me how back in the day he would follow Pantera on tour, and he'd see him Indianapolis, Dayton, Cincinnati, Toledo, Detroit. He's like, I would follow them all through the Midwest and see them as much as possible. I'm like, you're a madman. He's like, you do that with Iron Maiden though. And I'm like, you know, I do. But you know, sometimes you just had to, but I can't imagine going back in time when, you know, bands did bigger tours than what they do now, where they'd play, you know, out of 360 days a year, they'd be playing 300 shows around the world, you know. It's not like that anymore. You know, you're lucky if bands even come to Ohio. So it's, you know, let alone 2 or 3 dates, you know, so it's mind blowing.
You're wearing your Perturbator shirt. I had to make the decision. I'm sitting there one day and all of a sudden their tour popped up online. I'm like sitting there, I'm looking, I'm like, oh, of course they're not around here. And it was like Detroit. And I'm like, that's under 3 hours. It's not horrible. So I'm like, I call my sons up and then I call one of my buddies up. And I'm like, you want to go see Perturbator in Detroit? Joe's like, I don't know. I'm like, when are we going to go see them again? I think the last time they were through this area was like 5 years before that.
Mhm.
And I called up, I got a hold of my buddy Brent, and he's like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. We're not going to see him. I'm like, all right, let's go get them tickets. So,
Yeah.
and then I didn't even realize it because we didn't have the opening bands yet when I
Mhm.
bought my tickets. And then Health ended up being the opening band
Yep.
and fell in love with them on that one. And then just recently, last month, I took my kids to go see Health in Columbus. I'm like, what? Why can't Perturbator play freaking Columbus when it's only an hour and 20 minutes
I
away? It's
know.
almost 3.
And it's crazy because there's so many good venues in Columbus that he could easily sell out a place like King of Clubs.
Yeah.
You know, it's a club, but it's like it's big enough. Accept played there and sold it out. I'm pretty sure nearly. Like I said, Kings of Thrash played there. Obituaries played there. I've seen Overkill there, and it's like, even though Perturbator is electronic music, there is a huge desire for stuff like that, and he's huge.
Oh, yeah.
He's festivals in Europe and headlining,
Mm-hmm.
stages there. So there's no reason a band like him or even Carpenter Brute, because I've had to go all the way to Chicago
Yeah.
to see them. They don't come anywhere through here, and I'm just like, who's not booking these guys? Like, get with it.
The thing is, the club, literally the club I went and seen them in Detroit was El Club.
Yeah,
And
it's a tiny venue.
Yeah, my shop is bigger than that venue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in there and we're all packed in this little tiny room. And it's because you have the bar over here, and then you have the where the club part where people can go and see the band, and it's
Mhm.
tiny. And we're jammed in there, and it's sold out. It's full front to back. And then I, like I said, went and seen Health at the A&R Music Room next to Kemba Live.
Oh, God, yeah, and that place is also super, super tiny.
And packed again. And then I'm going to go see Time Cop 1983 in September there.
Oh man, I didn't touring. So yeah, that'll be a hit.
Yeah, it's they still got tickets. Yeah,
I might have to do that one if I'm not booked on a gig. That's one that's gonna have to be on my radar, because I saw Max and Igor Cavalera from original Sepultura members are touring and playing old school, like Bestial Devastation and Morbid Visions era Sepultura stuff, and they're coming to King of Clubs with Exhumed, and I'm like, dude, like that's a no-brainer. But I am in talks of a project around that time, so we'll have to see what happens. But I mean, there's so many bands touring right now, and it's kind of cool seeing some of these underground, like electronic artists, kind of hitting their stride and starting to play bigger venues. And it's like, when I saw Carpenter both at Psycho Las Vegas and in Chicago, like 2 weekends one weekend I was at Psycho Las Vegas, then the following weekend I was in Chicago to see Carpenter Brute again. And it's like the crowds that the group was pulling were insane, that I'm like, how are you guys not doing bigger tours than this? You see the tours and it's like 10 or 11 dates through the US, and it's like, you should be selling out every show. This is crazy, because they're playing such small venues, and they're outgrowing it, really. So I'm hoping in the future we start to see that, because bands like Gunship, who's never played live in their career since they've been around since 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you guys not playing arenas right now? Because it's like they've grown so popular. It's weird that the synthwave kind of era of music is like, it's kind of like the new rock and metal scene, essentially. And it's kind of cool to see that that industry grow and that type of music grow, and you're pulling all the harder fans and all the metal fans into it, because it's kind of right in the vein of that type of stuff. So it's just it's awesome seeing that. I would love to see Perturbator again. I haven't seen him since 2017. So it's been a minute. And he did a tour in 17, he did a tour in 2019, and then I think this is the first tour he's done since then. So it's like every couple of years does a short tour. And I missed that one.
It was 18 days, 16 shows in 18 days.
That's
and
wild.
two of them were in Canada, the other ones were in America.
Mhm.
And as soon as I seen them, I'm like, I'm going. And then I've gotten to that point now. You're talking about going to Slovenia to go to a concert. I'm like, I'm old, and I'm like, man, I hated going further than 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours was like, oh god damn, I don't want to drive in 2 hours and go see a show, turn around and come back in 2 hours. Because I hate staying in hotels.
Oh, sure.
Despise it. And now I'm like, I've gotten to that point, and I've gotten old enough that I'm like, I'm either A, never going to see these people play live, or I'm driving 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, screw it. This upcoming Saturday, I'm going to go see Nightclub in Detroit.
Hmm.
Um, Never seen them. I was like, you know what? $20 tickets. I'll drive up to Detroit. I was literally just there
Hmm.
Friday to go see wrestling. So
Hmm.
I'm like, get the hell with it. I'll go see a band I want to go see too.
And I've brought that up to people too, that it's like you hit a point as a music fan where it's not like going to see in a movie, because you can drive to any theater within reason and see any movie that's coming out that
Yep.
you want to see, or you stream it at home. With bands, it's like they're only getting booked where, it's going to sell or whatever the promoters want. And with so many bands touring, sometimes the routing doesn't make sense for them to play in a certain place. And, so it is reaching a point where it's like, this summer, so far, what I've planned, I'm going to see Iron Maiden a week from today in Slovenia. Then when I get home, I'm seeing the Sisters of Mercy up in Detroit.
Yep.
And then later in June, I'm driving to Chicago to see Emperor, who I just saw at Psycho. But when they announced this tour, they're like, we're only doing 5 dates, but we're playing this album in full. And I'm like, fuck, I love that album. Now I got to go. So it's like, but I'm
Yep.
like, dude, I don't want to drive all the way to Chicago for a show, and I'm not staying. So I'm going to drive home. And if I have to pull over and sleep in my car, like I will. But it's like, it's at a point where there are certain artists that it's like, okay, this could be the one chance to see this group live. So it's like the traveling almost makes it worth it. The big thing for me with Iron Maiden this year is originally they're like, hey, it's a European tour only. So I'm like, well, if I want to see him this year, I have to go to Europe. Pull my leg. I guess I gotta go to Europe. Big deal. But they announced one show in California and then 3 shows in Western Canada. I'm like, well, shit, I could have waited and just done those shows instead and stayed close to home. Definitely not upset, but it's like that show they're doing in California is a festival.
Yep.
And it was Friday night, it's Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden. Saturday night is AC/DC and Ozzy. Sunday night is Tool and Metallica. And they're only doing weekend tickets, but just the tickets for like the general admission area, the main festival grounds, it's like $700 or $800.
Yep.
And I'm like, is it worth it to see all those bands? Totally. You're seeing some hard hitters, but the only bands on that bill that I actually want to see is pretty much like Iron Maiden. I wouldn't mind seeing Metallica again, but it's like I'm not paying that to essentially go see one band. It's not happening.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's where I'm at, because
no.
I've never seen Metallica. That's the
Yeah.
one everybody freaks out. They're like, "You've never seen Metallica?" I'm like, if I could go back to 1988, I'd see Metallica all day long. But
Oh, for sure.
I can't. But I've had tickets. I had tickets for the night when it was Metallica and Guns N' Roses in Dayton.
Oh, wow.
And I was in high school, and I always had a deal with my mom when I was in high school, was I had to get up and go to school the next morning and work the next
Mhm.
day. And that was when, Guns N' Roses wasn't taking the stage till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, and the tickets were given to me. So it wasn't like I'm losing money. So
Sure.
I'm just like, the friend gave them to me, and I'm like, I can't go. You're gonna have to go give them to somebody else. And I've never seen them since. And it's like, God damn it. Now I'm regretting some of these bands, but then I'm like, that band that I loved is gone. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. That's the way with this year. Tina's a big Stevie Nicks and Aerosmith fan.
Mhm.
I'm taking her to go see Stevie Nicks in the end of June in Kentucky. And that's the most I've ever paid for a concert ticket. for 2 tickets 3 hours away is $400. And
That's
it's not even good it's not even good seats. It's
yeah.
okay seats. And I'm like looking at some of the seats and I'm like, I'm not dropping $1,200 for,
Oh.
I'm like, and then now she's looking because she wants to go see Aerosmith on their farewell tour. And I'm
Dude,
like,
those tickets are not cheap either. I mean, nosebleeds are like $200, and I'm
mhm.
like, dude, I'm not paying. I'll wait till it's closer and they're not sold out, and they start doing like, 4 tickets for $100 type deals.
Yep.
Because they'll end up doing that. Yeah, it's tough. I will say, just going back to Metallica, I saw Metallica. I had to look it up. It was in 2017 at Rock on the Range. It was right after Hardwired came out, and I will say they were fantastic live, like super, super good live. And now with this 72 Seasons album out, the set lists they're pulling each night, they're pulling some deep cuts. Like a couple nights ago, they played the song from the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, I Disappear.
Yep.
And it's like, when was the last time they played that live? It's just like they're doing some cool stuff with that. And now that they're like doing that 2 nights in a row type deal at the different US tours, like the night they're playing up there, what is it? It's Ice Nine Kills, Pantera, and Metallica. And I'm like, that if they did like instead of where you buy the ticket and it gets you there 2 nights, if they did single night tickets, I would go that night for that. That would be more than worth it because the tickets were not terribly priced even for the twofer.
No.
But like I tell people all the time because they see me front row at all these Iron Maiden shows, like, God, how much did you pay for that? And I was like, $100. If you can get the tickets when they go on sale, they're $100. But then you have bands like Kiss who are like, oh, you want to get on the floor? Cool, $2,000, bro. And it's like, what? It's totally bonkers to me.
Well, that's like, I'm not gonna lie. When we went and seen King Diamond, Merciful
Mhm.
Fate.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine calls me up, Pete, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go see?" Because we had somebody bail. You want to use the ticket? I was like, "Yeah, shit, yeah." And they're like, "Oh, we got great seats and stuff like that." And I get there, and I'm like, "Oh, these are good seats." And then I realize, man, we're in the seats, and I'm like, "The floor's right there. That's where I'm normally at." I
Yeah.
like sitting in seats at concerts, man. I like being on the floor. And then, of course, they had seats on the floor, and I'm like, "That's weird." And then, of course, I went and seen
I
Clutch down there recently, and then it was all floor, and we were right back up front. So I'm like,
yeah. I that was such a weird thing. So I've seen Judas Priest uh like again 7 or 8 times, and most of the times where I've seen them in bigger venues, it's always been seated floors. Very bizarre.
Mhm.
Even when Judas Priest played there, they had with Queensryche back in like late 20, what was that, 21, 22, somewhere in there, or this past October actually,
Mhm.
seated floor, and the floor tickets were like $150. I'm like, I'm not paying that to be on a seated floor. Like, I'll pay that if I can get there early and get up front. Like,
Yep.
yeah, totally. But again, the Merciful Fate, the seats my buddy Nate and I had, we were in like the middle of the floor, middle section. And I think after fees and everything, I think those were $100. And I was like, I get to see Creator again. That was rad. I got to see Midnight again. That was rad. I got to see Fate again. But it's like, I was very thankful to have seen Merciful Fate like a month or two before that at Psycho Las Vegas. I got to the main stage. I got there at 10 a.m. And then I waited till noon when they opened the doors, and I made a dead run for the rail. And I was on that rail and I waited there until 10 p.m. through all the other bands just so I could see Merciful Fate front row. And I'm glad that I got to do that. But it just, that tour was just weird because the night before that in Gary, Indiana, it was an open floor. But then in Cincinnati, it's a seated floor. But then down at the Tabernacle in Atlanta, it was an open floor. And I'm like, why seated floor for Cincinnati? And I think it's because, and not a shot at them as a band, I think with the open floor, it would have moved up the capacity a lot. And I think there may have been a concern with selling it out because almost every tour date on that tour did sell out. So I think there was a concern with that potentially. But again, I mean, for $100 for a band that hasn't toured in 23 years, I mean, it's going to sell out regardless. And that's what has me curious about Wasp. because Wasp is playing down there with Armored Saint in like, when is it, like November, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about going to that. I'm more of an Armored Saint fan than I am Wasp, but it's like, to see them both, why not? But I'm like, man, I don't want to do it if it's a seated floor. That listen, it's nice to be able to sit down, but I want to be up close, you know.
When we went to Clutch, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, come on, let it be open floor, let it be open floor, let it be open floor. And I like walked in and it was like, I was like, yes, okay, good.
Yeah,
and,
it's weird. It's but you know, at the end of the day, I am glad that all these bands are figuring out a way to make it work into tour, because you keep seeing so many bands from Europe that are like, yeah, we're probably not going to tour the States ever again because it's too expensive. Or bands being like, you know, we have to cancel this tour, canceled. Like, God, poor Anthrax. How many European tours have they canceled in like the last 2 years because they're just like, we just can't make money on it? And that breaks my heart, you know.
Oh yeah, because you think Anthrax is huge, and you think,
yeah,
and they're big over in Europe, but the fact that they can't make enough money to pay for everything to go over there, and well, that's like there's a couple bigger bands that I'm like, there was reading an article and they were talking about these bands touring and how they're either breaking even or
mm-hmm.
even losing money, and I'm like, I've been to these shows, they're sold out, and you're telling me that they're not making any money. And I'm like, and you see the merch sell, you see everything going, but I'm like, how much is it costing to do all this shit? Then you find out that like this is the one that gets me, and I don't understand why they do this. I understand the big bands, okay, like Rock on the Range, which is not Rock on the Range now. Sonic Temple.
Yeah.
They have that thing that you cannot be in the area, what, 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I get that if you're Metallica, I get that if you're Tool, I get that if you're Guns N' Roses, shit like those fucking Spirit Box, or those guys should be able to tour the fuck out of everything in that area 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, because people are not going to go see them for their 15 minutes that they're going to get a stage time.
Absolutely.
And you're going to go, okay, especially if you did it after. If I went and seen a band, I don't know how many times I went and seen bands, especially fuck how old I am. X Fest. You go see a band and you're like, those guys are good. And then you'll go and they're like, oh, well, they're going to be back through in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you would go see them. And then, of course, the show would be full because you had all the people that got to see them at X Fest for 20 minutes, if you're lucky. And they would go see a full set at the show. And I'm like, why don't they allow them to do that? But no, they give them that stupid 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. You can't be with them.
It's so weird because I remember seeing Judas Priest at Rock on the Range in 2015. They headlined Saturday night. Sunday night, they played like a secret show in Cincinnati at the Horseshoe Casino. Now it's like the Hard Rock.
Mm-hmm.
They played to like, there's only 1,000 people in the area and it was open floor. And I'm like, dude, this is amazing. And then you got to see him do a headliner. And it's like, so many of these bands come over here for an exclusive show to play Rock on the Range or Sonic Temple. And they're in the area. They might be like, hey, let's book a show for the day after. So people who saw us at the festival can come check us out, you know, the next whatever. And yeah, I mean, you have venues doing that. But then also you have like venues taking merch cuts.
That's bullshit.
And I'm telling you, I think merch cuts are completely bullshit and completely unfair. But it's like, I saw it happen on the Kings of Thrash tour, you know, and I saw it happen at so many different bands. Merch cuts are bullshit. Promoters being sketchy, pocketing money, but then also the cost, since everybody is taking buses right now, the cost of getting a bus, you know, the cost of keeping everyone fed, paying the crew, you know, it's just, there's so much that goes into it. And then international, to give you an idea, so with me traveling to Europe to see Iron Maiden, originally I was supposed to do it in 2020 for the Legacy of the Beast tour, and it was a fan club trip to Sweden. And for my flight out of Chicago to fly to Stockholm, Sweden, and then fly home out of Gothenburg, because I was going to fly into Stockholm, stay there for a couple days, take a train to Gothenburg, stay there for a couple days, see Maiden, then fly home. and I was going to be in Europe for, I think it was a total of 9 days. Round trip was like $630 out of Chicago. It was insane. And it was like during the summertime, but we bought the flights in like February, but right before COVID went fucking nuts. And it was so cheap. But now, even out of Chicago, which is a huge international airport, it's the same price of flying out of Cincinnati. So my flight out of Cincinnati to get to Slovenia, round trip, I'm there for a week, I think it cost me $1,220 or something like that. And it was within $100 of the same price of in Chicago. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to drive to Chicago unless I'm getting a big discount flying directly out of there. And it was the same price. And I think flights are through the roof right now because they're trying to make up for all the lost profit. And, there's a garment shortage. All these bands are touring, so people are upping their prices. They're like, hey, someone has to get it printed somewhere. And I think just the cost of everything's going up, that profit margin is shrinking, and now starting to reach a point that if you're a smaller band, like I'll use Obituary, for example, because they're on tour right now. Even though Obituary is selling out shows, they're playing with Immolation and Blood Incantation and like all these like big death metal bands right now. Still, they're probably not making a huge profit, and it's so sad to see that, because it's like all these bands that have been riding high for so long, it's almost like they're regressing back to the days of when they started. And we're like, if you're not made like Iron Maiden, Metallica, or like Megadeth, or a band like, Five Finger Death Punch or Rammstein or anything like that, you're not making money. And it's just like, holy cow. I mean, even guys, the dudes in Exodus and the guys in Testament, they've all openly said, yeah, we have day jobs when we're not touring. And I'm like, what? You guys keep, that's insane to me.
Well, that's like when they made a huge deal because I believe it's the drummer from Kitty is a real estate agent. That's her day job. Yeah, she shows houses there. I saw her business card online. It's like I can't remember, Landers, blah blah blah, and it's she's a real estate agent. That's her day job. And a lot of people somebody in a relatively big band had to quit because they couldn't afford to be in the band anymore because they weren't making enough money to because you still got to travel, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're out there on the road and they're like, I had to go get a job.
It's crazy, and it's like, and I tell people all the time, because like when I tell people what I do, I'm like, I do special effects in film. They're like, well, why you work on movies? Why are you still working a day job? And I was like, I don't make as much money as you think I do. It's like, it's not like I'm like making bank over here, broski, and I recently picked up photography, and that has been wildly successful for me. But the cost of buying equipment is so high that there's no profit to be had unless I'm booking and shooting 7 days a week and making, $600-700 a day. I mean, there's lenses that cost more than my camera did.
Yep.
$2,000-3,000. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, this is nuts.
Last year, my son, we were taking a family picture, and my wife does photography on the side. She makes okay money when she does it, but she works in the medical field. That's her day job. Our son ran and knocked the camera over. And I had to go, and I was like, all right. So I'd been hoarding back money because I was going to buy myself another car, which is what I fucking needed. And so I'd been hoarding back cash, and I'm like, all right. I walked up to her and I'm like, buy another camera. And she's like, the camera, just to get the same level camera, she goes, it's another $600 more. And I'm like, I'll see what I can do. And but I bought her another camera, and it was like $1,800.
Yeah.
And luckily the lens was fine.
Yeah.
But
that's where you get into big money there, because it's like I said, the camera I just bought was like $1,500, and that's like for pretty entry level mirrorless,
Yep.
full frame camera.
Yep.
But then looking at the types of lenses that people are recommending to me, and I'm like, dude, these are like $2,000 to $2,500. Like, yeah, that's where the money's at, because lenses will last forever.
Yeah.
Your camera will eventually, you'll have to upgrade it and get new one, blah 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 blah. But they're like, the lenses, if you keep them nice, they'll last you forever. And I'm like, oh my god, and I have like 4 lenses that I hop between, and I have 2 that I definitely favorite. But it's like, even buying used lenses, you're still looking at $700-800 sometimes. It's crazy.
The lens Tina really wants is like $3,500.
I believe it.
And
I totally believe.
That's not including, your camera bags, all your accessories. And then we bought the big expensive printer. So
Yeah.
she has the big, the damn thing weighs like 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's photo, I can legitimately, I joke around, I was like, I could print off like cases and stuff for like video games and shit. You'll never know the difference. It's not not like a bootleg one where I can, run it off. No, it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
And she's got that upstairs. That thing was, I think it was over $1,200 for a printer.
I believe it.
Like,
plus your lights.
Yep.
A good, like, high level memory card, you're looking at $100 a piece on those, which is bonkers. Then you start to consider a good laptop or a good desktop for your editing, something with high RAM to process that stuff. Like, I'm shocked I haven't burnt my iPad out with how much I'm working it with the editing I've been doing. And I'm like, I need to go buy a MacBook. And I'm like, well, God, MacBooks are, $1,500 to $2,500. I'm like, I can't swing that, and it's being an artist in any form, whether you're working on movies, you're a photographer, even being like a painter, or being in a band, there's so much front end cost. And I think now more than ever, just the cost of stuff going up is it's really putting a hurting on it, and it sucks that we as artists can't live off of that. I mean, when has an artist ever really been able to live off that? But you get what I'm saying. Like, it's harder now than ever, and we're even seeing it with some of our favorite bands, and it's really, really sad, and it breaks my heart for them.
Well, it's like I'm my channel's growing. I'm getting a lot of subscribers and stuff like that. And it was like, you making a lot of money. I was like, I ain't making shit. I make a little bit of money off Patreon, and what I make off Patreon, I buy new equipment.
Yeah,
that's all I do. I have not made any money, and that's bad. Is I've also had sponsors who've tried to sponsor me, and I'm like, I don't like that. Nope. And they're like, you didn't take a sponsor? It's like, I don't use them. I'm not going to sponsor them. Fuck them.
Yeah.
So, and then I finally found one company that I really liked, and I talked to them, and they're like, we'll sponsor you. What do you want? I was like, it's a thing called Ramen Toys. They make toys that are throwbacks to old stuff, but they rename them, so legal reasons. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And I'm like, what do you want? I was like, send me 2 toys. Send me one to keep on, I put it on the set, whatever, and I'll open it up on the show. And it's like, and one to give away occasionally. And they're like, we can do that. And they're like, is that all you need? Yep. I was like, I get free toys. It's all.
You know what? I'm down.
I don't have to pay for it.
I would be all about free toys. My God, if I could get like, now for what I do, it wouldn't work. But if I was like, imagine getting sponsored by like NECA or somewhere that they're like, just, like the deluxe figures and stuff. Like, sign me up. Or like even like companies like Super 7 and stuff like that. These guys making like all kinds of cool toys and things. And God, that would be so rad for sure.
I'm talking to them, and I'm talking to a couple t-shirt companies and stuff like that. I was like, dude, I'll wear your shirts on TV. I was like, you send t-shirts that I like, I'll wear them. I'm even throwing that out the bands. I'm like, dude, you want to send me free t-shirts? I'll wear them all day long on my show.
I've tried to do that with my FX stuff. Like, I'm like, listen, I don't really have a name. I'm not really famous or anything like that, but send me a free t-shirt, give me a free t-shirt. I'll wear it on set, and I'll talk about you guys all day long, And I have a few friends that are in bands that have given me free stuff to either have people wear in movies or for me to wear on set and stuff like that. And, it's like, you know, I've posted so many pictures where I'm like, I'm the everyone's wearing like, you know, horror movie t-shirts, and I'm like the one guy that's like wearing band shirts every day, and I'm just like, if you want to spread the word, man, just give me a t-shirt, we can make it happen. You know, it's just like that's the best thing that could happen is getting sponsored by an artist or a band just to wear their stuff. God, that'd be a
I should, as much as and the worst part about it is everybody associates me because I do love the band Clutch, and I got a few t-shirts. I legitimately have 4 Clutch t-shirts, but that's how people recognize me because it's the Clutch shirts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't wear them all the time, man. I wear Star Wars t-shirts probably 100 times. I wear Clutch.
Yeah.
I have more. No, I take it back. I was gonna say I have more Perturbator shirts, but I only have 3 of those. So, but now I'm like, you know, I would totally wear. Just send me a t-shirt, man. I'll wear your shirt on my show. Fuck it, hell with it now.
Oh yeah. I see. The trick is I need to get Iron Maiden to sponsor me because I have 86 Iron Maiden shirts. Totally nuts. And anyone who's watching this knows me. They're like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, seems about right.
And that's just them. Like, I think I have like 8 or 9 Goat Horror shirts. I mean, I have like 3 Perturbator shirts. God, I'm just trying to think of all the. I mean, of all the bands I listen to, I have anywhere from like 3 to 5 shirts on average, and because that's just how I support. You know, I wear the shirts and people see it, and it's like the best kind of advertising is a t-shirt. You know, and everyone loves a good metal shirt.
Oh yeah.
So you know, it's just that's what clicks. I'm trying to go through and sell some of my old shirts because I'm like, I have so many fucking t-shirts. I need to start getting rid of these. It's totally crazy, but yeah, I mean that's like the best kind of sponsorship. Like, especially if you could get in with a company like, you know, Fright Rags or like, you know, Cavity Colors, where they're making all those really cool horror and sci-fi shirts and stuff. Like, God, some of the best artwork out there, and some of the coolest designs. Like, I remember Fright Rags kicked off. When was that? Like 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere in that range. I could be off by a year or two. Yeah. But back when they were doing like the What Would Jason Do shirts with the hockey mask and just doing like kooky stuff like that. Now they're doing like officially licensed like AAA feature horror film shirts, and like they're doing everything ever.
They have an OCP hat.
Yes, I mean like everything. And they again, always working with the coolest artists out there to bring you the coolest designs.
Oh yeah,
like they're unstoppable.
And yeah, I'd love to get in with them. There's a couple other ones I was talking to, and the guy's like, dude, I'm too small. I'm like, all right. I was like, man, he goes, what would it take? I was like, just send me a shirt. Send me like a shirt a week. I'll wear it on my show. No problem. I was like, it's, you know, yeah, that's a lot of t-shirts. I mean, 4 a month. But I mean, that's that. I was like, literally, that's my average show does, I don't know, 10,000 views or something. Like, I was like 10,000 people that would never see your shirt otherwise.
Yeah. Even if it was just one a month. I mean, that.
Yeah. Yes, I mean,
you just wear a month, and it's like people see it and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know? So.
And people ask me because I still wear their shirts on my show.
Yeah.
And they're like, where'd you get that? Because I have they did a bunch of Star Wars that look like concert shirts. So instead of Black Sabbath, it says Black Squadron. That has Mandalorian instead of Metallica, and it says Hunt Them All instead of Kill Them All.
Oh my God. That is so sick.
What was the other one I got? I got Rebel, which is the Princess Leia with the Ziggy Stardust lightning bolt on her face.
I've seen that one. I have seen that one. Yeah.
What was the other one I got? I got the Stranger Things Eddie Munson t-shirts that look like the Metallica t-shirts.
I've seen one before where it's I've seen the Iron Maiden shirts for the Trooper, where it's a stormtrooper.
Yep.
I've seen that one. You know, I've seen a lot. I saw one. It was a Judas Priest one for the Rebel Squadron. Instead of like screaming for vengeance, it had like
I got that one. That's the other one I have.
Those are so cool. I love those.
Yep.
And I love crossover stuff like that. It's always
this is Jedi Priest. And
Yes, good eye priest.
yeah,
Oh,
I
my
have that
God.
one. I'm trying to remember. So I got a couple other ones too that they did. Oh,
Mhm,
I got a one that looks like a Black Metals t-shirt,
mhm.
except for it says Xenomorph and it has the alien in it.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I have one that looks like an 80s t-shirt and it says LV 426. And
Uh-huh.
it's like the 1980s synth wavy looking print and
Yeah,
stuff like that. I have those.
those are so sick.
Love that stuff.
Oh,
And then,
I'm a total nerd for a cool shirt. I geek out for that stuff all the time. I'm so bad about it. But I go on a movie set and someone like, dude, that shirt's so cool. Where'd you get it? Or go to a concert and you have something, unique and it gets people talking.
well, you know how many bands I've met because I was at a show and I had my Mumra t-shirt on.
Hmm.
It's the most people have the Thundercats logo. No, I had the Mumra logo.
Yeah.
And it's dude, he's like the guy from the lead singer of Finger Eleven.
Hmm.
We're at I don't know if it was Odd Bodies yet or if it was still McGuffey's. He looks at me and goes, "Is that a Mumra shirt?" I was like, "Yeah." Fuck, where did you get that? I'm like, "I own a comic book store." And he's like, "Dude, that's awesome." I'm like, "Dude, you're in a fucking touring band and you're telling me that I own a comic book store, so that's awesome." And I ended up hanging out with them. I hung out with a bunch of the guys, not the two main guys, but the other guys from Hell Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, Otherwise, a bunch of small, not real big bands, but all because of concert. I was wearing a comic book T-shirt, and those guys spotted it, and I was like, "Fuck it." But I've also had the one is we went and seen Fozzy, Chris Jericho's band.
Hmm.
I'm literally up front row, 5 feet away from him, and this is when he was feuding with Kenny Omega.
Uh-huh.
So I have a Kenny Omega T-shirt on, and he's
Yeah.
sitting there, he's looking, he's doing his whole thing, and he looks at me and he points at me, and he's like, I just start laughing. He's like, "In Kenny Omega?" And I was like, "Yeah."
That's amazing. Oh my God.
But
That's
hey, you know what? He stuck to kayfabe, man. It's
Yeah.
funny to
And
watch
you
this.
know what? And sometimes those are the coolest bands to hang out with and are some of the ones that aren't like super huge and stuff like that, and making that connection with them over stuff like that's always so rad. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've met a band once or twice and had a cool t-shirt or just like, recognized them, hung out, bought some stuff, and then like it kind of becomes a reoccurring thing. In fact, one of the things when David Ellefson and I were hanging out on the tour bus in Columbus, we were talking to a couple of the other like crew members. They're like, "So how do you guys meet?" We're like, "Well, we met for the first time at Rock on the Range." I said, "But then I met him again at a con," and David was like, "That T-shirt you were wearing, you had the funniest T-shirt." And it was an all black shirt, and then in white letters, all it said was, "Remember when RoboCop shot that dude in the
Dude in the
dick?"
dick. Yep.
And I got a photo with him, and at the con, he's like, "Dude, that shirt is so funny." And he remembered that, and that was like in 2018. So it's like, oh my God, this is like 5, 6 years ago, and he still remembered that shirt. And I'm like, God, I didn't even think you'd even remember me, let alone the freaking shirt I was wearing. It was just so wild how those things happen.
Well, that's one of the funny things about doing the horror movie. Doing the convention circuit and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I've been doing the convention circuit, comic books, and all that shit since
Mhm.
1990.
Mhm.
Or earlier than that. And it's funny because I had people that hadn't seen me in years. I thought
Mhm.
there's no fucking way. And he's like, "Dude, you're yeah, I remember you." I'm like, "Dude, I ain't seen you in 10 years." And he's like, "Oh yeah, fuck, you stuck out." I'm like, "Okay."
It's wild how those things happen. And, I've just randomly met some of the coolest people. And then, it's like sometimes at concerts, you'll like just make a random friend that you kind of just talk to, but then you like don't stay in touch. But then you randomly bump into them a year or two later at a similar concert at the same venue. Um, that actually happened to my dad and I. So it was 2013. We went to Nashville to see Iron Maiden. Megadeth was opening, which was like freaking the coolest thing ever. And in the crowd in between Megadeth and Iron Maiden, these two guys almost got in a fist fight right where my dad was at. He grabbed one guy and pulled him back. It was like, dude, chill. It's not worth it. Just cool down. It's fine. Everything's cool. And that guy calmed down. He's like, you know what? You're right. Thanks, Gigantor. And he called my dad that because my dad's like 6'6", 250. Like my dad's a huge guy. And so he towers over everyone else. And so he looks up to my dad, calls him Gigantor. And no exaggeration, that was in 2013. 2016, we go to Tulsa, Oklahoma to see Iron Maiden. And we hear from like a few people down, hey, Gigantor! We turn around and it's that same guy. And since then, we have bumped into him at 2 or 3 other shows. So we see him every now and again. And we've never like traded info on like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. But he's like, he remembers us, it's just like, that's how you associate people with things. It's so funny.
Well, I ran into somebody a while back. I ain't seen them. I couldn't tell you their name or nothing. I don't even know their name, but they're the guys that you kind of spot at concerts and you like run into, hey, fucking high five. And I hadn't seen him in years. All of a sudden he walks in and goes, what the fuck happened to the rest of you? I went, what? He goes, you used to be kind of, and I went, yeah, I lost a lot of weight. I was like, I was almost 250. I was like, I'm 180 now. And he's like, how'd you do it? I was like, fucking hard work, man. I was like, I don't fuck around. And he's like, good on you, man. The fact that he remembered that I was chubby at one point, and now I'm fucking lost a bunch of weight. I'm like, I don't know if that says anything that I stuck out that bad because I was just bloated or whatever.
That's such a wild thing to remember by someone just come up and be like, dude, what happened? You used to be like, and it's like, oh, gee, thanks for reminding me. Like,
I was like, oh man, it was just funny because it was out of the blue. I hadn't seen this guy in a few years, and yes, I had lost, like I said, a bunch of weight. And he's like, "What the fuck happened to the rest of you?" And I'm like, "The gym."
The gym happened.
The gym, hard work.
You too.
Yeah, and I stopped eating a lot of junk.
That'll help. That'll help for sure.
And it's just one of the ones where people love to give heavy metal music shit because it's all Satan, me, whatever. I've been to pop concerts, I've been to country concerts, and just like, because you're there and you're like, oh, it's fuck it, we'll go see them. I don't care, Yeah. And I've seen people, literally the worst fucking show I've ever seen with people trying to fight and drunks and just people getting into shit was the one time I went to country concert.
I was gonna say it had to be country concert.
I went there once because I got free tickets.
Yeah.
And I went, I was like, yeah, I went to see the one band. That was it. Boom, get in, get out. That was my whole thing. But I was stuck there all day because I went with my friends who were there for the entire day. And I'm just like, I'm watching people fighting like 2 feet away from me. Legitimately, I'm watching these people going at it in a sleeping bag, not 10 feet away. And I'm like, there's just kids running around. I'm like, okay, what?
It's wild.
They're fucking guys doing fucking, and you see people smoking weed, you see people drinking, you see fucking people fucking smoking meth and shit at fucking, it's country concerts.
It's crazy. For those of you who don't know, maybe not be from around here, once a year here in Ohio in the Fort Laramie area, retrospective, an hour north of Dayton, let's say.
Yeah.
It's a 3-day weekend country concert extravaganza, redneck Olympics, man. Like, no judgment, but like the stories and the pictures and videos I've seen looks like it is just a lawless wasteland for like 3 days of just chaos. It looks insane. I
feel like I should have been Mad Max out there.
Like, I'm expecting to see like a Morton Joe rolling up, and it's just like, dude, it is. It's wild. And I have friends that go every year, and I'm like, how? And they're like, I was like, do you save up all your party energy for that like one weekend? Because I used to be a party animal and I could not keep up with that. Like, it's insanity.
I like I said, man, it was bad because we got there early. You get there real fucking early, especially if you only got a 1-day pass, which is all I had. My other friends were there for the entire weekend. So I had to get let out on the road because the roads
Oh yeah,
traffic is dead stopped. So
that
I had
whole
to
little
get,
town is just
yeah, I had
shut
to
down.
walk
Yeah.
and then try to find my friends. And this is the early days. So no one had cell phones. And and so I finally found them, spent the day. I had to get the ride to come back that night because they couldn't get into the campgrounds to get me. So I had to
Oh
wander back to the road and then wait in the dark for my ride home. And I was like, all right, this is the one and only time I've done this. I'm done. Fuck this. I'm never coming back. And they tried to do one rock one, and they're like, oh, we had too many problems. Have you been here during the country? I knew people who had because it's at a campground. It's
yeah.
people legit have camp there all year round. They have their motorhomes or their trailers or shit.
Yeah.
And they're telling me these horror stories about, you go, yeah, we don't even go there for like 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after because it's a fucking filthy mess. So like the
Oh
entire
my
month
God.
of July, they wouldn't go to their own campground because they're still cleaning it up. I'm like, but that was years ago, so I don't even know what it was
Yeah.
like. But
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what it's like now. I mean, like outside of like the stories I've heard from people, and everyone's like trying to get me to go one year. They're like, "Come on, just come one weekend, just do it once to say you did." And I was like, "I'll make you guys a deal. If someone pays for my entry to where I don't have to spend a dime on it, you guys want me to go that bad, y'all chip in, buy me a pass, I will go."
that's what
But
happened to me.
that's the only way I'm gonna do it because everyone's like, you gotta experience it once. And like, it's like Gathering of the Juggalos. Like, I'm not gonna throw shade at Juggalos. It's not my scene, but the amount of people are like, you gotta go once, and I'm like, I'd rather do that because I feel like that would at least be like entertaining to a
At
degree.
least there's bands I'm going to like there.
Yes,
Because I know
like
Static X plays
metal
there, and
bands play,
yeah,
and like
Guar.
Gore's played, Cannibal Corpse has played, and it's like David Ellefson's band, The Lucid, since they've done stuff with Violent J, they've talked about playing, and I'm like, I can go with stuff like that, absolutely. And at least there's stuff going on, like even no matter how goofy it is, like they have like rap battles and stuff, tournaments, and I'm like, okay, I can get down with this. But you know, I look at all these like heavy metal festivals like over in Europe, and I'm like, I want to go to like Hellfest really bad. I want to do like Resurrection Fest or Download or
Want to go to
Inferno
Wacken?
or Mystic Festival. And it's like I want to do all this stuff, but I'm like, man, is it gonna be like a complete shit show like the festivals here in the US? Or do they have it together there? But I've heard my buddy Don actually works for Iron Maiden, so he goes on tour with them. And he's told me that most of those festivals are so well organized, and the people, he's like, obviously, you're going to have people that are like kind of a handful to deal with. He's like, you're going to have that at a regular concert.
Yep.
He's like,
Yep.
he's like, overall, it's nowhere near like the stuff you see here in the US. He's like, people are so respectful at those things.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping one of these years to get over there and go to one of those because it's like, it's always 3 or 4 days of like every band in every playlist I've ever made. So it's like, I mean, Hellfest this year. Oh my God. I gotta like pull it because I know Iron Maiden's headlining one night. I think Ozzy's playing one night. I mean, and it's always like, you know, 3 or 4 stages. What is it? Oh yeah. Kiss, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Hollywood Vampires, Iron Maiden, Pantera, Slipknot. Those are just headliners on the main stage. Like you look at this and you
yeah.
see all these bands, and it's just like, dude, how do you even start to pick where you're even gonna be? And everyone complains of that. Like all my friends that listen to country and go to like country concerts stuff, like, man, it's so hard deciding who I want to see when and blah 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 blah. And I was like, can't relate, but like also I look at stuff like this and I'm like, what am I gonna do? It's like when I did Psycho Las Vegas, I recognized if I want to see some of these big bands like Emperor and Merciful Fate, I'm going to have to sacrifice these other 10 bands I want to see that day if I want to get up close for this performance because there's just no other way, I'll never forget, because so the first band would go on at like, and I mean, every festival's like this. We've all seen it where the first band goes on at 11 and your last band's not off till like 3 a.m. The one night, I think it was Saturday, was when I had the most bands in a day I wanted to see. And the first band I wanted to see went on at 11. my last band I saw was Health, but doing like a DJ set. So they were like just picking random songs and doing like a DJ set for like a dance club type thing. And they were the last band to go on that night. And I think I ended up seeing like 20 something bands that day. And every single band had like an hour set. But because of that overlap, you know, you had to like run around and all the stages are on like the other sides. So I'm like doing a dead sprint everywhere. And it like, I went to see At the Gates. And if anyone who's like a death metal fan, they played like the whole Slaughter of the Soul album, which was like a legendary thing. And I was halfway through their set and it was like poolside. So there's people in the pool having a circle pit and like splashing everywhere. And it's like so much fun. It's halfway through. I'm like, shit, now this other band's on. So I had to run over to the next stage, catch like 3 songs for that band. I'm like, oh shit, this band's on. So I made like a dead sprint to this other thing. And it was like ridiculous trying to see all these bands. It was out of control. But then just, you know, some of the bands that you do get to see back to back, like the Friday night in a row, I saw Carcass, Mayhem, and Emperor, all 3 back to back. And it's like, these are like huge legendary bands that, you know, should be headlining in their own right, but all playing back to back. And it's just like one of those things where it's like every band you're seeing is better than the last. And it's like, who even came up with this? You know, it blows my mind, some of these festivals and how they're able to pull it off and get some of these bands together to do it. You know, it's always amazing. And especially some of these bigger ones like Download Festival, where you have like Friday nights Iron Maiden, Saturday nights Kiss, Sunday nights Metallica. And it's like, how do you even have the money to even get those 3 bands, let alone the other 30 that are playing? It's like, Jesus, dude, this is crazy.
Well, when you get 100,000 people at $1,200 per ticket.
What kills me though, so like Hellfest, I was looking into it, and every year I put myself on their wait list. So when tickets launch, I get an email so I can buy them, but they always sell out in like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Your ticket for 4 days, and this is what again kills me, and I think it's just a United States thing. Ticketmaster, your 4-day pass, including your camping, is like $250-$300. And I'm like, all the bands you get to see, and it's all general admission, just, you know, it's a free-for-all. And I'm like, $300, and there's like, how many bands playing? And some of these bands, you couldn't see all these bands in a row for that money.
No.
You know, how are you pulling this off? I mean, it's insane to me how they're able to get these artists together in one place and be able to only charge that. It's just, it's totally beyond anything I can even imagine, you know. But it's cool, and I wish more stuff like that would come here. I don't know if you saw, what is it? The Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Yeah,
they're reviving that, and that lineup's amazing, and that's this coming weekend. And I was like, I was gonna try to get a ticket, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in Europe, so I can't double dip. Really, I'm gonna be like 8,000 miles away.
my whole thing is it's I was like looking at it and I was like, and I'm thinking about it, I was like, I have to leave the shop and leave Joe in charge for at least X amount of days, plus have somebody watch Vince and the dogs. And I'm like, I can't, I gotta justify all this overage. And then the fact is I'm gonna be losing money on top of that because I'm not at the shop.
Yeah.
And it's bad is because as much as people like Joe and they go in there and they deal with him and stuff like that, people like dealing with me. So sure. Mark makes okay money. Joe makes okay money. These guys are here. I make, X amount of money over that. So I have to justify losing that amount of money.
Oh yeah.
To go do anything. That's like I'm sitting there at wrestling and Joe calls me up and he's like, dude, it's slow. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, I love going to see in deathmatch wrestling, but literally you can only see it in like Pennsylvania and like Michigan. Those are like the only 2 places you can actually see deathmatch wrestling.
Sure.
Because they don't allow it in Ohio anymore. So I have to drive up there and it's like, man, I have to leave. I open up the shop. I have maybe 1 customer and then I leave.
Yeah.
And then I had to do that, justify that for next Saturday. I'm like sitting there going, okay, it's 2.5 hours there. If I open the shop at 1, they don't take the stage till 7:30. I can leave at 4. I'm like figuring out. So I'm like, okay, so I can make sure I can make myself some money before I leave.
It's crazy. It's like when you start to land in these scenarios, it's like you become a real mathematician and you start like scheduling all this out. Like, okay, what's the most opportune moment to pull off leaving and going to do this and stuff? And it's I think about that stuff all the time, especially when I like have to consider like booking a film gig versus like working a day job versus like, all right, am I going to be able to pull off going and seeing this band? Or like if I'm like when I was out in LA, there was a couple of concerts I considered going to while I was out there because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna miss these bands when they're in Ohio or Kentucky or Indiana or whatever, but they're gonna be out here at this time. Am I gonna be able to pull it off? You know, and it's just like it becomes a whole thing because of the routing and stuff. But then also whatever you have going on in your personal life, it's always crazy.
Well, that's like I've gone to shows and I've gotten lucky because I've been on vacation or something like that, and they're like, "Hey, such and such is playing down the street tonight." And I'm like, "Yes, all right, we're gonna go see a concert."
Well, here we go.
Yeah, well, that's like we went to. I haven't been to Harpo's in forever up in Detroit,
Oh God, yeah, I've never been.
and we went seen GCW wrestling up there, and I'm sitting there walking around going, "I've been here," and I'm like looking. I'm like, I knew where the bathroom was, I knew where everything was, and I'm like, when the fuck was I here? And then I'm like, I remember when I was here. Fuck, I saw Gwar here. And it was because Gwar was at Motor City Comic Con.
Uh-huh.
And I used to hang out with those guys at all the shows, at all their comic book conventions and shit. And they're like, "Are you going to the show?" And I'm like, "Dude, I gotta get back to Ohio, and I don't have a ticket." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you mean ticket?" I was like, "Just be here, we'll get you in."
Yeah.
So I drove, the whatever 20 minutes from the convention to Harpo's and went and seen Gwar for free because they were like, "Yeah, come on in." And,
Oh my God.
I got to see them in Atlanta doing that because I was at Dragon Con, and I was at an event screening for Mimic.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Well, when's the movie over?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know because there's a Q&A afterwards, whatever." And they're like, "Okay, we're going to be here. You go," and I can't remember what they're, he goes, "This guy will be at the door. You tell him who you are, and he will walk you where you need to be."
Oh
So
my
I got
God.
off. Because they had a transit van or whatever to take us from the theater back to the convention center. And I got off that, ran down the street, went in this alley. There was this big dude standing in the alley, and I was like, "Are you Dave or whatever?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You Paul?" And I'm like, "Yep." Opened up the door. I walked past everybody, and boom, right there I was. And I saw Gwar that night too.
That's crazy. Now, this is going to blow your mind. Wouldn't you believe I've never seen Gore live? How crazy is that? Everyone's like, you've not seen Gore, and I'm like, and they tour twice a year probably,
Yeah.
constantly, and they're always in Cincinnati.
Yep.
They play Bogarts every year like clockwork, and every year something's come up. I regret not seeing them. What was it, late 2021 when they were touring with Napalm Death?
Yeah.
Dude, I regret not going to that show because I'm a big Napalm Death fan and I haven't seen them in years. And yeah, I just like they always have a great lineup of bands performing like on their tours. So it's like I really regret not going that, but it always seems like every year they tour, there's like some kind of conflict and I can't go. And I'm just like, dude, I'm just gonna have to hire them to like play me a private concert at this point or something. Cause it's like, how do I keep missing these guys? You know? And it's like I even met Dave Brocky at a convention about a year before his passing. And it's just like I've met one of the guys and I haven't even seen him live. Like, how does that even work? You know, it's crazy, but they're like one of those legendary bands, you know, and it's like I've never been to Dragon Con, and with how much I do cons and stuff like that, everyone's like, "Oh, you got to do Dragon Con." Like it's so much fun.
I love Dragon Con and hate Dragon Con simultaneously.
Gotcha.
One is it's a great con. There's so many people, and it's
Heard
super.
it's like very, very big. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. If I was a single dude,
Uh-huh.
fucking good looking single dude, you make out like a bandit. And it was bad because I went and I did not know any of this stuff was going on. I went down, probably the second time I went down, was with me and one of my really good friends years upon years ago. And, yeah, as I've told you before, I don't sleep in hotel rooms for shit. So
Sure.
I think I slept maybe 4 hours the entire weekend.
Mhm.
But I'm fucking partying with everybody. This is my favorite thing is I got to party with Boba Fett, Chewbacca, and R2D2. Um,
Amazing.
and it was all because of, yet again, I was wearing a t-shirt. Well, I was wearing a hockey jersey, and Jeremy Boba Fett had just got hockey in his hometown, and
Uh-huh.
he loved hockey, so we started talking hockey, and it just went off. And then I end up at the in the hotel bar with
Uh-huh.
him, and I start talking to him. Pretty soon, Peter Mayhew shows up, sits down. Freaking Kenny Baker comes in. I end up hanging with those guys for a few hours. Um, then I go and they're like, okay, well, the best thing about it is that this is mid 90s. And I go to the hotel bar and it's like $7 a beer. I'm like, fucking $7 a beer, goddamn. So I went down the street, found a freaking liquor store, and I had my backpack. So I filled my backpack with liquor.
Oh my
Took it
God.
back. So I'm sitting there legitimate, looks like I'm nursing a beer because I bought one beer. And the whole entire time, like at my feet, I have a bag full of alcohol. So I
Yeah.
just,
Like slowly, like just pull
yeah.
a new one out every now and again.
And then we went back and we're in the hotel, and it's the Westin. So it's this big opened up area going up, and everybody's room's open. Everybody's room's open.
Oh my God.
Everybody's hanging out in the hallways. Everybody's partying. People are out, everything. You're just going from room to room. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, shit, if I was a single dude.
It's unreal.
Oh man, it was weird. And you can go. One of the best things you'll ever read in your entire life is about a week before Dragon Con, go on Craigslist for Atlanta and read these people trying to get roommates or to hook up for the weekend.
Oh my God. I
And
can't.
I'm just like,
What is happening right now?
I'm like, and it's funny because people go, what's it? It's like, it's a fucking nerd orgy is what it is. And everybody's like, duh. I was like, fucking go look it up.
Yeah.
And yeah, you got the family side, the actual, but man,
Sure.
it's
I
probably,
tell people all the time, and I've believed this my whole life because I've been doing cons since 2010 roundabouts, and I tell people all the time, nobody and I mean I've done mostly horror cons, but I've done anime cons, I've done like fan expo where it's a little bit of everything,
yeah,
and I've done like more comic cons, I've done a little bit of it all, but I'll say nobody parties harder than nerds do, straight up. It doesn't matter what sanction of nerdom or fandom you're in, nobody parties harder than nerds do. Like I mean, like I said, I was a party animal in my early 20s, and I would go to these things and get completely sloshed, and I could never keep up with anyone else that I was partying with, and I was like, dude, people are crazy at these things, and it's I have friends that within the film industry, they go from con to con showing their films, and just hearing the stories of just how much partying they do while they're out, and I'm just like, how do you even recover, just doing this all the time, man? I couldn't do it. I'm an old man at heart. Like I gotta be in bed by like 11, or I was just like, all right, I'm just not gonna make it, so
well, I can tell you the best one was I was at a con years ago, and I'm sitting there, and I end up, people love talking to me. That's
sure.
kind of why I've ended up doing this show. Is so I'm sitting there talking to this couple, full Klingon gear, full.
My God.
Ridges, the gear. And I'm just sitting there talking to him and talking to him and talking to him. Then I start to realize why they're talking to me. And I'm like sitting there like, and they're like, well, let's continue the party upstairs in our room. And I'm like, oh, this dude wants me to, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
You walk in the room, you see an upside down pineapple, and you're just like, wait, hold up. What's happening? Where's this going?
And I was like, I'm sitting there because it's not really dawning on me. I'm not even thinking about it. 'Cause I'm a few drinks in, and all of a sudden I'm like, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
It's like I got a thing to be to. I'm late.
I gotta go. I'm like, no, I'm married. Thank you. I appreciate the offer, but I'm married. Thank you very much. I gotta go.
Oh gosh, that's insane. Totally crazy.
It was one, and it was like, and I hate to say this, part of me was like, in full makeup.
Tell you what, I'm gonna do it, but you got to keep the ridges on. You
Yeah.
lose the and I'm sorry, no sale on that.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, you guys gotta stay in fucking costume because this is not going.
You got to speak Klingon like dirty talk in Klingon.
Fuck, you gotta stay Klingon character the entire fucking
character the whole time.
But no, like, oh man, it was one of them ones where I was not ready for it 100%, you know, because like I said, people fucking, and I don't know why. And my friend pointed this out to me. We were at a horror hound this year, and he goes, "Dude, fucking people love you." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Everybody talks to you like they're your best friend." And I went, "Really?" And he goes, "Those people sat at our table while we were eating, and they just struck up a conversation with you, and they are asking you questions and shit like that." And I'm like, okay. And he goes, and then we were standing in line to talk to Lloyd Kaufman. Dude next to you started talking to you. And he's like, and like every time we would stand somewhere, people wanted to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm an asshole. Why would anybody want to talk to me?
And see, and I tell people all the time, like, I think you very much like myself. We're talkers, you know.
Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, obviously, we're just like rambling about the craziest, wackiest stuff, but it's like, you know, I think you have a really good personality. With, you know, you're just an easy person to talk to and stuff. I have like this problem where I have the same thing happen to me, but you take me to like a con or like a concert, and it's a curse. It's within my family. You look in the crowd, and I want you to point out the weirdest or sketchiest looking person in that crowd, and I promise you, they're going to come right up to me and strike up a conversation. I always attract the weirdos. I attract awesome people, and we end up being friends and stuff, but I always attract the weird ones. They walk up, and I'll never forget this. My dad and I went to see Voivod over in Columbus at the Ace of Cups. A guy he works with's band was opening, and we took a couple guys he went to work with that he's known since he was a kid. And we're standing there, and there's this guy just being really fucking weird in the crowd, just being like, and it's like, I'm not just gonna look at a random person, but wow, they're weird. But it's like he was just acting really strange, and I will never forget this. My dad nudges me. He's like, "I'll bet that dude's gonna come up and talk to you." He's like, "Watch this." And we're just hanging out, and about 20 minutes later, dude locks eyes with me, walks up to me, and he's like, he can barely, like, if I could get up right now and show you how he was walking, he was clearly very intoxicated, and walks right up to me, doesn't point at my shirt, but puts his hand on my chest. Is like, starts patting my chest. He's like, "Bro, I fucking love Entombed. Your shirt's so fucking cool." And I was like, "Thanks, dude." And then he's like, "Yeah, man," and then walks away. And then this guy, Tommy, that my dad's friends with, looks right at my dad, and he's like, "God, your kid certainly gets it honest. That's the shit that used to happen to you all the time." And it's like, it became like a joke for the rest of the night. And I said, you pick out the weirdest or sketchiest person, they're going to come right up to me and try to be my best friend. And I am so socially awkward that I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And it's always, and everyone thinks it's hilarious, and all my friends make fun of me for it, but it always makes for a fun story every time.
It's not the weirdest dude to me now at concerts. It's the drunkest dude.
I get that too. Oh my God.
And it doesn't help anymore. I'm fucking sober. I've been sober for like 9 years, and I don't like the smell of alcohol anymore. I can't fucking be around it. And it's never, all right, man. I'm like, oh, fuck off, dude. Go away. Oh, you fucking stink and you're sweaty as fuck. Go away.
Oh God, and they're always sweaty and
Oh,
kind of. It's like, oh God,
and,
like,
and my wife just
uh,
kind of looks at me and kind of snickers and laughs. She's like, we were at fucking JD Legends. I can't remember what band we were seeing. Some hair band.
sure.
And I'm there and I'm like, this guy won't fucking leave me alone. And I'm like, I know he's just like fucking drunk in front, and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking knock him out. I can't fucking deal with this anymore. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, my wife could like my eyes like, you know, shit. And I'm like, hey, dude, I'd push him away, and pretty soon he'd be back over. I'm like,
Oh
I looked at
God,
him like, all right, I gotta go to the bathroom. I was like, because if not, I'm gonna beat this guy's ass. And I was like, are you
yeah.
too drunk? Because I get it, he's drunk, whatever. And I
Mhm.
was like, and if you're gonna fight somebody, at least have them be sober so they at least know why they're getting their ass beat.
For sure.
And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I go take a piss. I come back and I can see him, and I'm just like, all right, fuck off, dude, go away, go away. Pretty soon he stumbles off and he walks off, and I'm like, all right, let's walk back up. And I make back where I'm at. And I'm like, whoo, okay. My wife's like, you good now? I'm like, yep. That guy just pissed right off.
It was last year, so this would have been like March of 2022. I went to the King of Clubs and I saw it was Prong and Overkill were playing,
I wanted to see
and I
that.
got there a little bit early for like some local opener, and this is why anymore I almost refuse to go to concerts alone. I either want someone there with me or people I'm meeting up with there. But I
Yeah.
went by myself to this one, and oh my God, within 10 minutes of being in there, this dude, I mean, absolutely shit faced, borderline drooling and like lazy eye going, walks right up to you. Hey, bro, really like your shirt, man. I was like, thanks, dude. I like yours. I mean, I'm just trying to be nice. And he's like following me around, like just trying to, and I can't understand a fucking word this guy's saying. And I'm just like, oh my God. And he's just like following me. And there was a couple points where he'd like start rambling to some other random person, like, shit, yeah. So I'd like weasel around and I'd get away. At one point that night, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Like, it's him. He's like, hey, man, I thought I lost you for a second. I'm glad. And I'm like, please, no. Yeah, you thought you lost because I was running away from you. And it's like, and when he said, I thought I lost you for a second, like I'm his best friend that he like got disconnected with. And I'm like, oh God, why? And I'm just like way too nice. And I'm just like, oh, this is miserable. But I was able by the time Overkill got on to get clear up to the front and away from him. And oh my gosh, that was a wacky time with that. It's and I've been sober. This October will be 4 years for me. So it's like, once you've been away from that for so long, you kind of hit a point where it's like, I don't like. It's cool if people drink. I don't care. I'm
No,
not like
that's me. I don't care
like
either.
you do your thing, but it's like once it starts to like affect me and the fun I'm having, I'm like, man, now you're just bumming me out, and it just it gets wacky. But yeah, that dude, I mean, as funny and awkward as it was, it was really hilarious when he was just like, oh man, I thought I lost you for a second. I was like, no, he found me. It was like something out of a comedy movie, dude. It was so hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it's every time, whether it's a that or a con or um yeah, it's always something.
That's the one thing I wish I could get away from. Man, everybody, like I said, everybody thinks they're my best friend. Also, I joke around that I am what we refer to is pickle famous. Everybody knows me in town. There's a handful of us that, of course, Eric has tattoo shop, you got a couple of us that
Yeah.
like everybody knows us because of our businesses that we're in. And they come up and talk to us like they're our best friends.
Yeah.
And I'm always pleasant. I try to be nice and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Some people, I've legitimately told people, I was like, dude, I'm out with my kids. I've got my wife and stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
come to the shop on Monday. I'll talk to you then.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. But I got those people, who have boundary issues, who
Hmm.
don't. And it's funny because I like you said, I'm a wrestling fan, and we talk about the wrestler Randy Orton. He was at the
Yeah,
gym, and people were taking pictures and wanting to talk to him, and he's like telling the guy, "Dude, don't fucking take pictures of me. Wait till I'm done. I'll talk to you when I'm done with my workout."
totally.
And I was like, I fucking understand that. And they're like, "Oh, whatever." Like, dude, you don't understand. People fucking will. Some like if I'm at the gym, there's a handful of fucking people will not leave me alone.
Hmm.
And when I'm at the gym, especially if I'm by myself, if I'm with Mark, it's one thing. Me and him bullshit and talk, and we work out. And I try to keep it between just me and him, and we keep our workout going. And but sometimes, man, I got my earbuds in, and I'm focused. I'm doing my workout. I don't pay attention to anybody at the gym. I don't pay attention. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, there's hot blood." I was like, I don't know. I don't pay attention, man. I'm there to fucking work out, get out, and go home. And these people will come up, "Hey, man, did you get any?" I'm like, dude, I'm working out. Talk to me when I'm at work. You
Hmm.
know, dude, feel free. And I was like, you talk to me all you want. 5 hours of 2 to 7, you could talk to me all goddamn day. I
Yeah.
was like, but 7 till 2 in the morning, like that's my time. Leave me the
Yeah. People have serious boundaries issues sometimes with stuff like that. Because I mean, back when I worked at FYE, whether it was in Piqua, Columbus, Beaver Creek, Dayton, wherever it was at, there'd be people who would like come to know me from working there, especially in Columbus, because it was like Columbus, we had a lot of metalheads that came through, and I was like the metal guy, the horror movie guy. And so people loved coming in. And I mean, I had customers that would come in on my days and they'd hang out for 3 or 4 hours and just chat with it, like to the point where I wasn't getting work done. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get in trouble, you know? And there was a time I was at God, where was that, like Barnes and Noble or like Best Buy or something, like just on my own time buying something. And one of my regulars told me, like, "Hey, Deryk, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh God, like I gotta run away." And like I freaked out and ran because I'm like, dude, I I'm in the zone. I'm in my world. Like, please don't do that, you know. And I felt so bad that the next time he came, he's like, "Dude, what happened? You're like freaked out." And I was like, "Man, the Deryk you get here is customer service, Deryk. The Deryk that you ran into at Barnes and Noble or whatever, like that's like daytime me. That's like, don't talk to me, leave me alone. I'm in my world, you know." And so it was like so awkward. But I was when I was at Days of the Dead in Atlanta. I was standing in line to get coffee one morning. I think it was like Friday or Saturday morning, and Malcolm McDowell was standing right behind me. And we walked by. He saw me. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Good. How are you?" I was like, "Great, great." And that was it. That's all it needed to be.
Yep.
And this guy walked by and sees Malcolm, stops, turns around, walks back up. He's, "Oh my God, Malcolm, so nice to meet you." Malcolm's like, "Yep, nice to meet you too." And so like just trying to be not
Pleasant. Yeah.
mean, but he's just like pleasant, but like, "Hey, like don't leave me alone." And the guy's like, "Dude, I love you so much." He's like, "Thank you, thank you." And he's like, "Dude, can I get a picture?" And Malcolm's like, "No, why don't you come by my table later? I'll take some pictures. We can talk all you want." He's like, "No, man, like, let's do a selfie right now." And Malcolm's like, "Sir, I'm just trying to get coffee." I turn around, like, "Dude, you are just like, can you leave him alone?" I was like, "He's at his table for like 12 hours today. Come by and get," I'm like, having to stand up for a celebrity here because this guy's being a dickhead. And I'm like, dude, just leave him alone. This is the only him time he's going to have
The
probably
entire
for the
weekend.
rest of the day today, until he gets bombarded with fans. Like, chill out, just like leave the guy alone. And for what? Because you want to save $40 on getting a photo with him later, but then you want to piss him off, or like, dude,
Yeah.
I've never understood that. Uh,
Well,
People overstaying their welcome or just like trying to like bombard celebrities and stuff like that. I mean, it's totally crazy. But after that guy ended up walking away, Malcolm went to me and he just put his hand on my shoulder. He's like, "Thank you." And I was like, "You are welcome. I am so sorry." He's like, "Oh no, it's fine." And I was like, "No one should do that." And so when I hear about people like, bombarding celebrities like at the gym or when they're out with their families, like I've never understood that because it's like, dude, they're people too. And it's like, don't do that.
well, that's like I said, we were just at Horror Hound. We went into the cafeteria, got some food. Well, my friends did. And I'm just kind of hanging with them. And I'm walking out and I'm talking to this guy behind me. not paying a bit of attention to who he was. We're just chit-chatting about the weekend, walk off, and he's like, see you later. I'm like, yeah, later, man, whatever. And I walk off, and somebody goes, you know who that was? And I went, no. And he goes, dude, that's Zola, the kid from Cobra Kai, Blue Beetle. And I'm like, ah, cool. And I and they're like, you didn't get a picture? I'm like, dude, he was getting food. I don't I'm like, that's his time, man. I ain't going
Yeah.
to, yeah, fuck it, whatever.
And like as a person who kind of does handling like for some of these like a couple celebrities at these things, because when Jeff, David, and Chris do the like, I'm handling all three tables at the same time, which is that is a lot. That is intense, but it's fun and I love it. But I'm blown away by just the way people act sometimes about it, the way people treat certain situations. But then at the most terrible times when they try to like approach these people, and it's like, and I just see it with them, and I'm just like, God, like I've never understood that. Like the amount of time, free time they have to themselves outside of doing this is already so minimal, and it's so exhausting to do it. And they're already going above and beyond by being here, signing, taking photos, and talking to you. And it's just, I don't know. People need to learn to like not, if someone's out eating food or they're with their family, like let them have that moment. If you get a chance in passing to say something and they say no, be like, all right, you know what, that's cool, whatever. But like, don't bombard people. Don't like, ride their ass about stuff. I've never understood that. It's so crazy to me. I've always felt bad for those guys. And I mean, there was times on the Kings of Thrash tour where I'd be backstage with them and like, all right, we need to get to the bus, but we had to go like in JD Legends. They had to go through the crowd to get to the green room. So David's like, stay on me. And I'm like, what? And it was like, and I'm like elbowing people out of the way, like, get away. No, go, get out of here. And it's just like, it was so shocking. And like being up on the bus and then seeing like 30, 40 people just sitting out the bus, side of the bus, banging on the window, like, let us in, like, sign our stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bonkers. And what they ended up doing, and they didn't even have to do this. They told me, they said, Deryk, you and Chaz go out there, gather up everybody's stuff, bring it on the bus, we'll sign it, and then you can take it back out to them. And I was like, all right. So I said, listen, they're not coming out, but if you give me your stuff and write your name on this sticky note, I'll keep everyone's stuff separate. I'll go back up, we'll have them sign it, and then we'll bring it back down to you. And everyone's like, oh, man. And I'm like, you're lucky they're doing that, dude. Like, chill out, man. So yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. And even having that a little bit, just being like a retail worker that somebody likes, or owning a business that somebody likes, or even with me being like, I'm like not a horror celebrity, but it's like within the indie scene, like people know who I am, and so it's like when I go work on a film, I'll bump into people like, oh, dude, I'm a real big fan of this. And then it's like, oh, dude, thanks. I'm glad you like it. Or someone's like, oh, I've been wanting to work with you for a while. I'm like, cool. But then it's like, it turns into an everyday thing where if like I'm off working on something, they want to stand over my shoulder. Or if I'm like taking photos or editing or whatever, and they're like, want to be at my side all the time. And I'm like, please don't do this, man. Like,
No.
I could never be a real life celebrity because people would cancel me for being a dickhead like within like a week, man. Because I just like, I can't handle it. It's crazy.
I would do, if I was ever a big time celebrity, I would be the worst big time celebrity, because one is that you see, what was it? Well, oh, goddamn. Was it Harry Potter or whatever? He wore the same shirt and pants every time he went out somewhere. So every picture looked exactly the same.
Oh, jeez.
So no one could get any paparazzi, like because it all looked, he was wearing the exact same shirt, pants, and a hat.
That's genius, actually.
So people stopped taking pictures because they kept getting the same pictures essentially over and over again. I was like, about the only thing you would get from me different is I'd wear a different t-shirt.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get very, but it's bad. And I probably, I kind of felt bad, and I asked you to get a couple things signed, and then I felt bad. It's like, man, I should have never asked him to do that because it's kind of a dick move. I felt like I was abusing.
Oh, dude,
our
no. And
yeah.
actually, oh, hold on 2
Oh,
seconds. It was right here, actually, in the other room. We're actually just gonna, just for shits and giggles, right here on the air, you can see I got them signed for you. So
nice.
they're
Thank
totally signed. I put it off for way too long. I need to swing by your shop and actually drop those off to you. I might do that tomorrow. Cool. But yeah, I mean, that's no worries. It was like a weird situation. I have a weird relationship with them where it's like, it's so professional, but every once in a while I bring stuff in. I'm like, hey, David, can you sign this for me? He's like, what's this for? I was like, it's for me. And he's like, okay. And he'll like, it's like, it's not a big deal and he doesn't care. But at the same time, he's just like, you got to be more professional than this. Stop having me sign stuff for you. I'm like, I can't help it. You're like one of my favorite musicians. And it's, you know, being a fan and also working in it, it's hard to not do that to a degree. So it's like my first time working with David, I brought a stack of stuff. I said, listen, I was like, we're going to be professional this week and we're going to get it done. I'm going to take real good care of you guys. I said, but I need to do it this once and just get it out of the way. Can you sign all this stuff for me? I was like, I'll pay you, whatever. He's like, tell you what, instead of paying me, he's like, I'll just take it out of what I pay you at the end of the con. And I was like, that's fine, dude. So he ended up signing all my stuff. And you know, and at that point, he was only charging like $20 for an autograph, which is absurd.
Yeah.
How low that is. Like, my God. But and now it's like I took the stuff to Atlanta. I said, listen, I have a buddy back home who couldn't make it out to any of his shows, and he really wanted to do the VIP and yada yada. And I was like, but he gave me these CDs. Would it be okay to get these guys signed? They're like, oh yeah, totally. And so they signed them, and I'm just like, yes, okay, perfect. You know, and I did get a couple guitar picks for you too, so I do have a couple of those. So yeah, I mean, it totally not a big deal, you know. And I tell people all the time, because I have so many friends that are like horror fans and stuff like that, and I say, you know, I can never guarantee anything, but if I'm working with somebody that somebody wants to get something signed by, I was like, I'll take it and I'll ask, but I'm not going to promise you that I can make anything happen. Like, I've worked with Felissa Rose now on 7 or 8 projects. Like, at this point, we work on everything. It, like, if Felissa's not on it, I'm not doing. Like, it's at that point, really. And I've never had her sign anything. And that blows my mind. I was like, how have I not had her sign anything yet? I'm just like, but then I'm like, I don't even have Sleepaway Camp on physical media. You know, I have a couple things she's been in, and I have stuff that's signed by her, but I've never brought anything for her to be like, hey, will you sign this for me, ever? And that just blows my mind. Same with Hannah Fairman. I've worked with her on several projects, and I've never brought anything to her for her to sign. I just worked with Sean Whalen, and I love People Under the Stairs. Twister is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I was like, and I not only worked with him, Alan Ruck was in the movie, and I was just like, how did I not have anybody? He had like 3 or 4 people from Twister in that movie, and I didn't get anything signed. And I'm like, I dropped the fucking ball on that one. Now, Alan Ruck was like in and out super quick, and he wasn't even signing stuff for Indiegogo. He's like, I'm not signing anything. And it's like, I respect that.
Yeah.
The only thing he did sign, we sold a couple 8x10s, and he said, I will sign the exact amount that we sold. And it was like 10 or 15. So he just signed those. He's like, that's it. And I'm like, man, I would have loved to have gotten something signed, but it's like, obviously I'm not going to be that guy and ask, because he was very strict about it. But yeah, I mean, like, I worked with like Robert Nukes from House of a Thousand Corpses, and I didn't get anything from him. And it's been weird. Like, you just hit a point where it's like, I don't even think about it. But then I'll have like a friend, like I worked with Kathy Podwell from Night of the Demons, and a buddy of mine at FYE, like, Night of the Demons is like his favorite movie, which I'm like, what a unique favorite movie. And he forgot to give me something for her to sign. So I asked her, I said, dude, like, he's a huge fan. Would you like write him a note or something? She's like, oh yeah, totally. She picks it up and she's like, dear Mike. And she like writes him this note about like, oh, it's so cool that you love Night of the Demon, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, that's almost cooler. You know, it's just every once in a while you can pull something off. I think with Hannah Fairman, since she did VHS, I was working with someone at the time who was like, she's like, dude, I love VHS. And she scared me so much. And that was like, I know what I'm going to do. So I asked Hannah, I was like, can we make a video? She's like, yeah, totally. So I do this video. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm on set with my friend Hannah. And then she's like, hi, Abby, I like you. And then so I send this video off to my friend Abby. She's like, oh my God, you know, so I tell people every once in a while, I was like, I can sometimes pull stuff off, but I'm never going to promise anything because you just don't know. And I don't like to be that guy. You know, I don't like to exploit my celebrity friends for anything like that. But, you know, sometimes they're super cool about it and all about it, you know, so you just never.
Yeah. Well, I did Gem City Con one year as a vendor, and I'm literally 10 feet away from Kevin Eastman, the creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Holy cow.
And he signed in, I think, 3 things per person.
And
so I took my 3 things up there, and he signed, I had the 4 of the first 4 Turtles games for the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo.
Oh, hell yeah.
He signed all of them, put a little turtle head on all of them. And he's like, I hand him the 3, he signs them, and he looks over and he goes, you want me to sign that one too? And I was like, dude, you just signed 3. He goes, I'm slow. He goes, I'll sign it real quick. So he signed it. And then he looks over and we're sitting there and we're talking through the day, and I'm talking to a couple other artists and stuff. And, you know, I'm making money and it gets slow. And he's like, got anything else you want signed? He's like, I see a Turtles over there. I went, yeah. He goes, what? He goes, give me some stuff. Okay. So I just legitimately hand him some stuff. And every once in a while, he just, you know, and set it off to the side when he was dead. And so by the time I left, I had 30 signed books, Turtles.
Oh my God.
I had toys signed. I had, because he'd get slow and he'd just be like,
give me something to do, you know.
Yeah. And it was funny because I ended up saying it was him, and I believe Angel Medina, who was on Spider-Man at the time. And he kept giving me shit because I took some of his earliest artwork he had done. And he's like, and he was just staring at me. He's going, you're the asshole. And I was like, what? And he goes, dude, no one has brought me that. He goes, I don't even like signing it. He goes, and you've made me sign 3 books. I'm like, I didn't make you sign shit.
Like, you asked for this, man.
I was like, he's like, you got any more? I went, I have like a couple more that you did. He's like, fuck it, give them to me. I'll sign them. And he continued to sign them just because legitimately we were like 5 feet, you know, like boom, boom, boom. And it was like, we ended up just bullshitting the entire weekend. I did Haunted Screams Expo over in Virginia last year. And it's legitimately, I was with the guest, and I don't know why they decided to put me with the guest, but I was there with my podcast and my show. And I'm with David Naughton, was kind of standoffish, but friendly enough. Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster, Gary Tunnicliffe, Mike Regan, and Paul Taylor, which I call the Hellraiser guys.
Yeah. We
sat there and talked the entire weekend, just bullshitted the entire fucking weekend. And they were like, you got anything you want signed? I was like, yeah. I was like, man, you guys are whatever. And he was like, just put it over here. When we get to it, we'll get to it. If we don't, we don't. I was like, all right. And so I hand them stuff, and I'm like, I was like, man, you guys have been a blast. I was like, can I ask you to sign one thing? One thing, and that's it. And I was like, I have a copy of Feast and on DVD, and I was like, I'd love to give it away on my show. And they're like, oh, fuck yeah. So Gary signed the front of it, Mike signed the back, and I was like, what do I owe you? And they're like, I don't know. Can you go grab me something to drink? And I was like, what do you want to drink? I was like, I got my cooler behind my thing. I was like, I can actually get you something like, you know, not from the thing. He was, yeah, that'll work. And so I just brought him over a couple things to drink. They hang out. God, Daniel, he was Grandpa Munster in Rob Zombie's Munsters.
Danny Roebuck. I just worked. He's cool as hell, dude. Yeah. So cool.
And he kept the entire weekend. He'd come over because I did an interview with him, and he kept stealing because I had a jar of candy on the table, and he kept stealing the Twizzlers out of it. And I was like, "Fuck, just." He's like, "Can I have one?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, just take whatever you want." And at the end of the thing, I was like, "Man," I was like, "I'm gonna ask you a favor if you don't mind." He goes, "What's the favor?" I was like, "My son loves Star Wars, Fallen Order, and he, because he does one of the characters in the game." And I was like, "Can you just say hi to my son real quick?" And I was like, "I'll tell you what." I was like, he goes, "Got any more Twizzlers?" I went, "I'll give you all the Twizzlers you want if you sign this." And he's like, "Yeah, hell yeah." So he's like, he takes my phone and he's like, "Hey, Joe, get to the ship." And he starts yelling at my kid in the character. And I was like, "That's fucking hilarious." My son, I still have it on my phone. My son has it on his phone because I immediately sent it to him. And it was all because he wanted some candy. And I'm like,
That's amazing.
I end up hanging out with Bonnie Morgan and her dad. But they were across the room. But we end up hanging them at the after party. I end up meeting a dude named Tony Cook. Tony Cook does the practical effects on a lot of TV shows.
And I'm familiar with the name.
Yeah, he's worked on Walking Dead, Outcast, God, everything from damn, I can't remember what it. Traders and some other shows. And he's like showing me pictures, but he's coming to our con in Piqua. He's bringing Dragula and the Mystery Machine, and fucking hung out with him the entire weekend. Hung out with the guys from Hellraiser and stuff. There's only one person who was really kind of standoffish and wouldn't talk to anybody, but from what I understand, that's pretty common with him, and that's fucking Leatherface in the reboot Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What am I doing?
Oh yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah.
And I heard that, and I was like, "All right, I get it," And but everybody else is friendly as hell. So
Yeah. People cons like tend to be really, really cool. And especially if you're a vendor or you're another celebrity or celebrity handler, usually you can pull off some really cool stuff. I mean, I took the Megadeth guys over to meet David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown. Because Jeff Young is a huge Terrifier fan. Like he loves those movies. He's like, "Man, I just really want to meet him." I was like, "Dude, let's go talk to him." I was like, "I will take you over there right now." He's like, "Would you?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So we went over, we got a big group photo. Days of the Dead shared it on their page. I mean, it was a whole thing. And then I had some friends that were handling for the Terrifier people. And I said, "Hey, I have this theatrical poster for Terrifier 2. Can you guys get it signed?" I was like, "I'll give you whatever money." Every single person signed it for free except for one. So it's got like 10 signatures on it. And I'm like, damn. And I still have like a bunch that I need to get to complete it. But it's like still like, damn. Well, I went to Tim Capello and he saw it because I have a celebrity badge because I'm with the Megadeth guys, right? And he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "You got that?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll sign whatever for free." So he signs a poster for free for me. I'm like, oh my God. Like it just pays off to be like a part of that community because you can get stuff like all kinds of cool shit like that. I mean, that's how I met Danny one of the first times. And then when I met with him on set at or on Crust, the one I was just doing, he's like, "Yeah, I remember you and Jaron. You guys were at Days of the Dead, blah, blah, blah. You were at the Megadeth guys. You were just a couple seats down from me." I was like, "That was me." Yeah. And it's just like, it's crazy when you start to like have these people remember and stuff. I mean, Days of the Dead in Indianapolis last year, I ended up sitting at Hannah Fearman's table with her because she didn't have a handler. She was doing it all herself. I ended up being basically just sitting with her at her table, my girlfriend at the time, and I were just sitting there hanging out with her. I'm like, "This is fucking wild, man. We're just hanging out, you know?" And what was it? Tamara Glenn was like on the one side of us. Right behind us was the chick who plays the lead in Frankenhooker was like right behind us. Laura Park Lincoln from Friday the 13th 7 was on. And I'm like, this is fucking crazy, man.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I guess this is breaking news, kind of. I am currently in negotiations for the next PickWaCon in November, And a couple people that you've talked about, I'm talking to their management right now about bringing them
Yeah.
to Piqua. So I don't know how the one I would love to do, which is way out of my price range, is the management that I'm talking to now has everybody from Nightmare on Elm Street 3
Oh,
except for Robert Englund.
gotcha.
And I'm like, man, the prices aren't horrible. I mean, of course, fucking Heather Langenkamp's way the fuck out of my
Yeah.
league. But I'm just staring at it. I'm like, goddamn, I can afford them. I can afford it. But I'm like, okay, maybe that's next year. Maybe
But if their guarantees are bad, you could hit those guarantees pretty easily. I mean, just being in the greater Dayton area, nothing like that comes through.
that's my goal. That is my goal, 100%. So I'm
You could
sitting there
hit.
staring at it. The right now, the only issue we're having is that with the mall changing ownership and shit.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about closing off half the mall. They're talking about doing this, and this. And I'm like, if I'm going to do it for 2 days and I have to charge because it's not going to be what I've been doing with PiquaCon with free through the door, basically to get it back flowing again and to get people back into it. I mean, literally, I sold out of tables this year. I've sold out of tables last 2 shows.
Well, even the show I was at last year, June, a huge turnout. Like it was super, super good.
This last one we did in November of last year was bigger yet again.
Oh, love that.
I counted through the door that I was at, because it's not including the people coming through the mall, 550. So I'm guessing we got 650 to 700 people at the con this time. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee it this time because, you know, it's the mall's, you know, the mall.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't have the conventions going in because I had one convention in February, and then my next convention that I'm doing as a dealer isn't until the weekend after mine. So I had no advertisement. I wasn't able to get to the conventions and hand out flyers to everybody like I normally did. So it's like, so I'm advertising them all over fucking the internet and shit. And that's where I'm at right now. But we're looking at a couple venues that aren't far from the interstate for our November show. And I'm figuring out what I have to charge, figuring out what the guarantees on some of these people. Some of them are easily affordable, no problem.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them like, okay, there's 3 people I could get for under $5,000. And I'm like, that's doable. And I'm like, okay. And yes, you know, they're not, you know, they weren't in, one of them has been in Friday the 13th. One of them was, you know, from VHS. One was in Blair Witch Project 2, which people lambast Blair Project 2, but fuck it, I like it. I don't care.
I think people are starting to come around to it because I've had so many people online be like, "This movie's an underrated classic."
It is.
Like,
it's so.
It's not that terrible. There are movies.
Oh yeah, dude. And as bad as I tell everybody that there's a difference between bad movies and boring movies.
Absolutely.
You can have a bad movie that's just dumb fun that you enjoy, and then there's movies that could be fucking great, have huge budgets and everything else, but if they're boring, it's like whatever.
Well, and that's like people all the time are like, "Oh man, Ghost Ship, that opening scene." I was like, yeah, the opening scene's all people remember because the rest of the movie sucked so bad. Like, it's like, get out of here.
I love Ghost Ship.
Which 2 was terrible. And I'm like, okay.
I love Ghost Ship. And the scene with the wire's great. But when that hook catches that singer chick, that's great. I love that. And the fact is that movie has a phenomenal cast and does nothing with it.
For real, it doesn't. But one I revisited recently that I was actually shocked how much I enjoyed on the rewatch was actually House of Wax. From around that same time, I enjoyed House of Wax. It's not terrible. I mean, who doesn't want to see Paris Hilton get killed in brutal fashion? Like, come on!
Oh my god, that's one of the best scenes, especially since it goes out and they pull it out long ways.
It's oh my god, it's so good, so good. But I think what you're doing with, with your con there, I mean, and just seeing it grow as much as it has been, I've said a million times over, I think it's so rad that, someone in our area is doing something with that, and I hope you can start to get some of those names in there, because it can only grow from here, and
Well,
it's so awesome.
my whole thing is that so many people talk, oh, I would love to make my town better.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to bring stuff to it. And a lot of people talk it. And I have lived in Piqua most of my life. And yes, as I joke around, if somebody asked me to like, oh, I moved here. I live 3 blocks away from the house I grew up in. And not on purpose. It was an accident. I bought a house that I really like, and it's literally 3 blocks away from the house I grew up in.
And if you're happy, that's all that matters.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine that lives out in California. And I'm like, dude, I have this really nice house. And he was like, oh, how much does that fucking cost you? And I'm like, X amount. And he's like, you know how much that house would cost in California? And I'm like, a lot. I was like, I got a nice little yard. I have a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. He goes, that's $1 million house out in California. I was like, not in Piqua, it ain't.
Yeah, I mean, and depending on when you bought it, because like now, obviously, we're gonna get into some real wacky stuff. Like now, buying even a ranch style house with like 2-bedroom, 2-bath is gonna cost like $300,000. Like buying a house now is just like the craziest thing someone could do. You want to show someone you're a party animal? Buy a house right now, and people are gonna be like, "This guy's wild," It's
well, and then on top of that, I'm trying to buy a building for my shop. So I am a glutton for punishment, and on top of everything I'm currently doing, between writing scripts, doing these shows, doing my convention, I have a adult prom planned, which we had to put off because that was supposed to have been yesterday. But we just started running into some issues, so we just postponed it, and it'll be later on this year. I'm currently working on maybe starting my own streaming network.
That'd be cool.
And I know this is dumb. I found this out, and I looked into it. When they rebooted G4, they were averaging 1,000 views a day.
That's insane.
That's it. I do more than 1,000 views a fucking day.
You could easily.
Yeah. Like, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to, I got all these people. I'm like, okay, I got a building I'm looking at maybe renting to turn into a studio so we can have stuff legitimately going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That would be amazing.
And, I'm like, well, if I have friends that do movies and they do fan films, which you can't monetize, but you know what we can do? We can show the entire movie and have a commercial at the beginning, at the end, and pay for people to pay for those commercial spots on,
Totally. Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there going, I think I got this. And now I'm talking to some other people about putting shows together and whatnot. And found out that a Roku channel is not as expensive as I thought it would be. And do I think you're going to be able to scroll through and pick and shit? No, it's going to be a fucking 24 hours. You got to know what time our shows are on. Yeah. And then if you want to watch the shows,
do it real old school style.
Yeah. If not, the shows will still be on YouTube. So like if you miss the show when it airs, you'll just be able to go watch the show on our YouTube channel. That's the goal. And that's what I'm currently working on. And as my wife tells me, she goes, as I told you, I'm not gonna lie, fucking about 3 months ago, I was this close to like having a nervous breakdown. Because I put way too much shit on my plate. I'm not gonna lie, I do. It's what I do. It's and as I tell anybody,
that's what creative people do, man. When you get cool ideas and stuff, it's so easy to be like, I want to do this, I'm gonna do this, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh my god, what have I done? It's oh dude, yeah.
And on top of it, and it's funny because I started looking into, of all stuff, is all these people who are now sober, and they work and they do 100 fucking things. Alice Cooper, fucking clean and sober. He's putting out 2 albums this year, and he's doing one. It's his current band, and one is his old band.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and then he's touring. on top of it. Then he's out playing golf and working at like homeless shelters. It's like, does this guy not? What doesn't he do?
and same with like fucking Rob Zombie, all these bands that and it's because once you're an addict or an alcoholic and shit like I was, you try to keep away from that as much as possible.
Yeah.
And when you get stuck by yourself, or if you're alone for long periods of time, or you're down, you start fucking having bad dark places and stuff like that. And you know, and this keeps me from out of that dark area, even though I almost fucking killed myself because I pushed myself too fucking hard.
Sure, yeah.
But you know, shit, I'm writing scripts for movies. I'm plotting stuff. I'm creating 3 shows a week. I have my own business. I do 2 conventions that I own a year, not including all the other shows I do a year. I'm trying to do the adult prom, you know, and now I'm trying to get this, and it's like, fuck, what am I doing? And I'm like, I'm closing in on 50. And at this point, I'm like, I want to leave something behind too, that fucking people will remember me.
Yeah. And you're so wildly successful in all the stuff you're doing that it's like, oh my God, dude, like you're killing it with everything, you know? And it's just like, you know, you're one of the people that so quick question, we're just gonna go off the rails for a second. Morgan Thompson, have you had her on the show?
Yeah.
You've had her? She's texting me right now. We're actually talking about me being on this show right now. How funny is that?
Tell Morgan I said hi.
Yeah, I will tell her. Absolutely. I just like worked with her for the first time ever a couple months ago and love her to death. She's totally awesome. Okay, I hope we get to work together again soon. We've actually been talking about doing some photo shoots and stuff, and I'm like, she's a blast. But yeah, I mean, you're one of the people that I look to in for inspiration, because it's like you're just constantly moving and doing things. And you know, sometimes when we spitball like movie ideas, or when I stop in the shop and we're just talking about film and music or whatever, and I'm just like, oh man, this guy totally gets it, you know. And it's I'm just amazed by all the stuff you're able to pull off. I mean, with the 2 cons, with all the podcasts and the scheduling with the shows, and you know, also running your own business, and it's like you're just doing crazy awesome stuff. You know, and I totally agree with the statement that I think once you've been in a place where it's like you've had some level of addiction, whether it's, you know, alcohol, drugs, or whatever it is, and once you get away from that, it's like preoccupying your mind and doing other things that make you feel happy or feel fulfilled. And a lot of times it's something with a business or something artistically, and it's creating art is such a high for me. And I think that's why, like, doing film, it's like when I'm not working on a movie, I'm like at home, sometimes I draw, you know, I picked up photography, and it's like that's making me feel so artistically fulfilled that I'm like, I'm taking a camera with me everywhere I go, you know. And it's like I could not agree more that you start to fill those gaps to keep away from that dark place with creative things that are fun and engaging. And sometimes it gets a little crazy. We all know how to, like you said, you get a lot on your plate and you're like, oh shit, I didn't even think about this, you know. But in the long run, I've told everyone, like, if someone drinks, smokes, you know, whatever it is, you know, that's, you know, your life. I'm never going to judge someone for that. But it's like, once you do get away from that and then you start to do this artistic stuff, it is such an exhilarating rush, and it's just so much fun doing that stuff. And, you know, getting away from those dark places that you can easily fall into. Like back when I drank, you know, I would find myself in kind of sad, you know, not a great situation or whatever. And it sucked. But as I'm away from that, it's like, I don't feel that as much. And it's like, I get to do something creative, and you get positives out of that.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's just like you're talking about how much the Piqua Comic Con's grown, even from event to event in the same year. I mean, it's mind blowing. And that is such a rush. And I'm sure I can't even begin to scratch the surface of how stressful it is putting it on. But dude, once it's going and happening, and you see those people there, you see people connecting, talking, having fun, like, dude, that's got to be such a cool feeling.
It is so much fun. Like, I want to say that last hour.
Yeah.
When you're seeing people making money, when you're seeing, you know, people getting artwork done, or the guy finding a book he's been looking for, the kids buying toys, this, that, and the other. You're like, I brought this together. You're like, yeah. And I have friends that do convention that have their own shows and stuff like that, and they do them in Dayton. They do the exact same thing. I would love to be, but as I tell people, so I mean, pick one. I'm never going to be, it's never going to be huge, but fuck, it could be pretty big, and
you could expand to a bigger city even. I mean, there's no limit.
Yeah. That's my goal is that I want to, there's a handful of stuff. I would love to make my shows do well and do what they are doing. My shop's doing well. I would love to bring back live music again to Piqua, because Piqua at one time had a thriving live music scene.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and people don't understand. I was like, dude, we had national touring acts that, we had Obituary, we had 6 Feet Under, all these bands were playing.
I remember 6 Feet Under coming through. Yeah.
Yep. I was like, fucking Stephen Piercy from Rat played the fucking Mug and Jug at one point.
That is so cool.
This is insane, and it's all gone. Yes, we still get live music occasionally, but we don't get. And I was this close to having. I've had bands, big, decent sized national touring acts, really close to playing Piqua. One was the guy who had the venue started flaking out on me. And I had to cancel everything. Luckily, I didn't pay. I didn't get to that point where I had started filling out forms and stuff like that. I was still booking dates and stuff. Then we had one where I'm like, hey, I'd love to book you. And they're like, we're going to be through the area. You got these 3 days you can have. And then I started looking at the days. Like, one of them was a Wednesday. One of them was the Friday that a Star Wars movie came out in the theater. I'm like, nobody's going to fucking come to a show if there's a Star Wars movie dropping.
Oh yeah. It's like new Star Wars. Everything's on. Yeah.
And and it started, fell apart, but I've come so close, and my goal is to find a place that I'm big enough I can turn into a venue maybe and have bands play that maybe not huge bands, but man, if you're opening for maybe you're a band opening for Megadeth and you're a good band. Like, I love the band Prong, you were just talking about them.
Dude, I love Prong. They're so good live.
Yeah, if Prong was coming, like touring, like maybe they're in Cincinnati with Megadeth, and then they got nothing the next day, and if I could get them in Piqua, fuck, I would fucking have Prong.
Oh, dude, in a band like Prong, because like Tommy's, he also plays guitar for Danzig, and it's like he has other stuff going on. Like, for Prong, if they're like opening for a touring act and there's an off day and they have a chance, I can't imagine their guarantee to play a show is going to be that outrageous for a band of that stature. Like, I can't imagine it. And when you talk about stuff like this, it has me wondering, like, God, what would be the guarantee to get like Kings of Thrash to come out and play? Because those are guys that could sign at a con and then at night play a show. Well, and it's like, dude, people would come to that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's like finding out that, okay, years upon years ago, we were trying to set up one, and we were trying to book Mushroom Head and the Misfits at the time.
Oh, that would have been so good.
And
about that a little bit at one point or another. And that would have been so good.
Yeah. The Misfits, and both of them were going to be insanely cheap, because the Misfits were coming through, and basically that would have been on their day that they didn't have nothing planned. So we were going to get them for next to nothing. And Mushroom Head, they're out of fucking Cleveland. They were smoked down, played, and went home. So they were like, yeah, we can knock this out. And their guarantee was like next to nothing, but that was also a decade ago. So I don't know.
Though, I mean, at that time period, Mushroom Head, which they've always been popular to a degree, especially in Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean, getting bands of that nature that typically would only go to like Cleveland or Cincinnati or maybe Columbus in an area like this, where there's so many fans in the area that wouldn't even have to travel that far. Like, dude, that would be an amazing.
Yeah, and you know what caused the problem? Not the two big touring bands. It was the dealing with the bands I was going to have open for them. The local guys are the ones that caused all the problems.
That blows my mind. Like, that's such a huge opportunity for anybody.
Well, the one I was doing, and I know I hate it, but it's fucking standard practice now, is the pay to
Sure.
play stuff,
Yeah.
and especially if you're a local band, and all these bands were like, "Fuck yeah, we'll buy tickets and sell." I'm like, dude, you could sell the tickets at a profit, and then that's
Mhm.
what you make. I
Yeah.
was like, we're gonna sell them to you at half cost,
Hmm.
and you sell them. If you sell them over, say we had a $30 ticket, we're selling them to you for 15.
Hmm.
You sell them for 25 and make $10 a ticket. Fucking go for it, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, then that's your money. That doesn't come to us. We already got our money because we got your $15 per. And that
Mhm.
goes to get things. And the more you sold, the higher up on the card you went. And then we started getting these bands. Well, no, I don't want to do that. We need a guarantee. I'm like, dude, you're gonna fucking open for Mushroom Head or the Misfits. You're never gonna do that touring fucking the little club scene around here. And it started to just, and it kind of snowballed with a couple people, and it was started causing problems because then other people were like, well, if they're going to get paid, I'm like, they're not getting fucking paid. They're
It's
gonna,
not what you think it is.
yeah. I was like, if these guys are telling you shit, then no. I was like, dude, then you're not playing. You're either A, you're gonna have to sell the tickets, or you're just not going to be on the card. And I'm like, and it started just falling apart. And then we had problems with some of the guests we were trying to invite
Hmm.
and the venue, and it just sort of just started snowballing, and it kept getting worse and worse. And we kept trying to make it come better. And I mean, I hate to say it's literally the first thing we had happen was I think we were going to have the Misfits on Friday night and Mushroom Head on Saturday night, and then Misfits called us up. Their management called us up because we can't do Friday, we have to do Saturday,
Hmm.
and that was kind of the beginning of it. But Mushroom Head's like, no, we're good. Fuck it, we'll do Friday. We're They're like, we can literally drive down, set up, play, drive home, and be home in our beds at night.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, fucking A. And they're like, the only thing they asked was like food. Like
Yeah.
I had to buy like the entire band dinner. Like, okay, shit, I'll give you a guarantee and fucking order fucking pizzas for everyone. Okay,
Seriously. Oh my God.
but it
It's
was
so sad that like you'd have opening bands get like all up in arms over something that is not really what they think it is and then ruin that whole thing. Cause it's like you're not even just blowing an opportunity for yourselves. You're blowing an opportunity for other people and all the fans that
mm-hmm.
want to be a part of that. It's
Well,
just oh my God.
and for lack of a better term, it's these local. And don't get me wrong, some of these local bands are pretty good, but the problem
Oh,
is
totally.
that they're local bands, and a
Yeah.
lot of these guys will never be more than local, even no matter how good they are.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from them. A lot of them guys got shit tons of talent,
Oh, totally.
but you're a big fish in a small pond,
Yeah.
and you're never and you're going to be stagnant at a certain point, and you're never going to get any bigger.
Uh-huh.
And yes, okay, fucking opening for Mushroom Head might give you a slight bump, and
Yeah.
you might be able to do something. I don't know, but it's a chance that you'll never probably get again in your lifetime.
I know. God, I wonder how many of those people look back on that and are like, fuck, man, we messed up. You
I
know what I
mean,
mean? It's like,
some of the bands I know aren't even together anymore. They don't even
oh, for
exist
sure.
anymore.
It's, oh, God, crazy. So crazy to think about. But I mean, genuinely, I mean, your show's something that I can totally see growing and becoming something bigger and having the opportunity to do that again. I mean, what is it? Ari Lehman from Friday the 13th Part 1,
But
his band
Troy,
First Jason, they're playing in Troy. You know, like what? There's a the Jasons, the punk band.
yep,
They're playing in Middletown of all places. And there's a black metal band I listen to from I think they're from Chicago called Sidan, and they're like it's like Japanese anime themed black metal. It's so weird. But like they sing about like, you know, all that traditional like folklore and anime stuff, but they're opening and it's like a band that like never tours. I'm like, what? In Middletown of all places? I was like, I thought I was gonna have to go to Chicago to see these guys or Cleveland or something, but they're playing in Middletown. Like what? And it's like if bands are doing that, like there's no way you couldn't get a decent sized band that would bring a crowd to your show, whether it's in Piqua or Troy or wherever you decided to hold it.
Yep.
Like there's no way you couldn't, especially with the attendees you have, the type of people you pull, you could get a band of that nature in so easy. I mean, even if you got like Tim Capello to like come out and play or something like that, that would be a lot of fun.
We would have, and that would be so huge because man, there's so many people who love Lost Boys
For real.
Roll in and especially now that he did, we work with fucking Gunship.
Yeah.
Do and yeah, that's next year. This year is November. I might go down to one a year and just make it one big one next year.
Yeah. Make it a 2-day event and just make it your one time a year thing. And when you get Tim Capello, we got to put up trash can fires and just redo the whole scene from the movie, and people are gonna love it. That would be
get somebody to show up as fucking David and Michael and.
Oh my God, that would be a ton of fun. See, now you got me like, oh, now I got to dress up as a Lost Boy and show up. It's gonna be a good time. Oh man, that's so much fun. But no, it's so cool, and I think there's so much opportunity for that industry to grow and for your show to grow and expand and do those things. And I feel like we're in a society now, not to sound like a goober when I say that sounded silly, but we are in a time and place where like nerd fandom is like so mainstream that going to cons is like, it's cool, and it's cool that people are embracing that and enjoying it and having fun, and stuff's popping up to where it's like even your friends and family locally are like making things happen and getting involved with it. And it's becoming like hey, let's do this for the community. Let's do this just for fun. And it's growing and becoming something bigger. And it's so awesome seeing that happen. Like I said, setting up your show, even though I had nothing to sell, is more of me just promoting my work and talking about the films I worked on with people. Dude, so many people came by and just hung out, looked at the stuff and talked with them. And I made so many friends, and even got to see friends that I haven't seen in years, and that was one of the most fun events I've ever been a part of. I had so much fun. That was so awesome. And I can't wait to do it again someday. Like it's such a good time. And it's still like such a fun little community thing that it's like, it feels like a family event, having the Bell Book and comic guys there, having my buddy, Stephen Hines there. And just like, it was such a blast. I love every moment.
Yep. It's fun being able to do this. It's fun bringing something to my hometown. Mm-hmm. It's depressing to watch. Just like we're talking about the mall. The mall's just fucking fun. Even though it just bought and they're supposedly putting all this stuff in there. From what I understand is that in the next month there's only going to be like 3 stores in that entire building.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Because even when I worked there, it was slowing down in 2014. Mm-hmm. But after I left in late 2016, from that point on, it was just like a downward spiral. And it's just like, I went in and took a little walk in there when we did your show last year, and it was just like, just a shell of its former glory. And it's just so sad.
There's no food at all. The last person left the food court, which was the one that was there for our last show, and it was bad because I looked at them because they sent me an email and they're like, hey, we'd appreciate it if you didn't bring in any food trucks. And I'm like, okay, understandable, man. It's the mall. Well, I'll help you out. I was like, and I walked up and I told him, I'm like, hey, I was like, you're going to want to get here early because them guys are going to want to start getting breakfast immediately when they get here. So 8:00, you're going to be here, and you're going to make sure you have plenty of food. Mm-hmm. They did not show up till after 10:00, and they ran out of food.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I told you, dude.
Yeah.
And it was funny because some people were saying that during our last show, outside of maybe like Black Friday or something like, those people were making more money than they had made like most of the rest of the year.
That's wild.
And I'm like, I could see that because, man, who else? I mean, when else has that mall had 700 people in it at one time?
Probably not for almost 10 years.
Not since Fred stopped having football players and stuff out there at the mall.
Yeah.
because those were big.
What's crazy is that mall used to have like events almost every weekend. It felt like it was like
Oh yeah, they
totally.
always had something going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember when I worked there, there was always stuff happening. Like, oh my gosh, all the time. They bring the race cars in. They bring, football and baseball players in, or this, that, or the. I mean, there's always something. My favorite is when they bring like the church groups in and stuff like that, and we'd be like blasting Slayer and stuff in FYE. They loved that. That was always a good time. But
Oh yeah, dude,
they
had UFC guys out there at one time.
Really?
Yeah, because of UFC and oh god, what's the supplement place they used to have out there?
Oh, GNC.
GNC. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had a thing, and so they were bringing UFC guys out there because of GNC. I met fucking the wrestler AJ Styles there because he was there because of GNC. Yeah.
What year was that?
2012 maybe. And that was before I had to shop. So yeah, 2012.
Holy cow.
So, well, man, I hate to do this, but we've been on here for a long time, and I have to go to the bathroom. So
it's all good. No,
yep.
It's I can't tell you how many times I have my buddy Cameron, and we do a show every once in a while where we talk about movies, and we're always like, yeah, we're gonna keep it hour and a half, and then like 2.5 hours later, he's like, okay, we got to stop because I have to go to the bathroom. I'm like, dude, me too. Like, we got to get on this. But no, it's super awesome being on here with you again after literally a year.
Yep.
But it's, Morgan says hello. It's, oh my gosh. She's like, I was like, yeah, we were just talking about how cool you are and how much I like work with you. She's just like, oh, come on. And I'm like,
tell her I just watched Debbie Does Demons a couple days ago.
I need to give it a watch. I keep telling her I'm gonna. She's like, have you watched it yet? And I'm just like, no.
I've got Don is on my schedule for Thursday, so I'll be interviewing Don again because I'm gonna talk about the movie because I finally got to watch it, and then we're gonna talk about the movie and shit with Don. So,
well, I'll tell you what. As some of these other movies I'm working on start to come out, we'll have to get on and actually do like a breakdown, like a commentary or something like that.
Definitely.
I do like talk, especially with some of the real crazy ones like Dark Circles and Late Checkout and stuff. We'll definitely have to do that. I definitely don't want to wait a year.
Definitely.
100%. Because I'm just like, how is that possible?
I didn't think it was that long ago. And I'm supposed to do a show with Jamie, Apple, Angel, and Morgan. And we're going to talk about the movie they worked on together.
Awesome. That'll be cool.
It's trying to get everybody, because everybody's working. So, which is awesome.
Yeah. What we'll do is down the road, we'll schedule one where I can get myself and a few other cast and crew members from something together, and we'll do a big group one. I think that would be a ton of fun. We should totally set that up. But I super appreciate you having me on again. Like I said, dude, it's always awesome chatting music and stuff with you. I feel like we could talk about stuff all day long, I swear.
Here we go. When I get my network up, we'll have just Deryk and Paul talk.
Yes, we'll have our own talk show, man. It's like was that thing, like The View or like whatever, and we're just talking music and shit. That would be so. But
I've got a show coming up with a bunch of guys I've done shows with, and I've hung out. We're actually trying to figure out how to get all of us, because we're all in different huge parts of the United States. We're all trying to get together to do one show where we're actually all physically in the same spot. But I'm doing a show with them on June 8th, and I'm thinking about calling weird guys talking weird shit.
That'd be amazing. So. And hey, you know what? I'm locally enough to you that sometime we should just do a live show where we're actually just talking in person live at some point. That would be a ton of fun.
Hell yeah.
You name it, dude. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. 100%.
Thank you so much for having me back on.
Being here.
Talking stuff, all the stuff. It's always great.
All right, man. Well, I have definitely got to go because I got to pee so damn bad I can't.
You're all good, man.
Later, man.
Hey, take care.